As for the last, the Nine Dao ancestor, he was a war general under the White Emperor. It is said that the world holds 9 secrets, namely Lin, Bing, Do, Zhe, Jie, Shu, Zhu, Qian, Xing. Each secret is a path that reaches the heavens. And the Nine Dao ancestor fused all 9, opening a road never before walked, the path of 9 Daos. Thus he made his name. In the era of the White Emperor, he rendered outstanding military service, and his deeds became known throughout the world. Among these generals, the Nine Dao ancestor should be the one closest in time to the present day. He stood in the void, the power of the 9 secrets swirling around him, as though 9 great Dao routes covered and intertwined within the heavens. It was as if endless Dao meanings spun in ceaseless rotation. And before the 9 Dao ancestor, a man appeared out of nowhere. He wore a gray robe, his long hair casually draped over his shoulders. This man was none other than the general of the Godspeed Emperor, the Traveler. The Traveler looked at the 9 Dao ancestor and smiled. I've heard that among your 9 secrets, there is one, the secret of walking. It is the extreme of movement, able to leap up to the 9th heaven, descend into the 9 netherworlds. No place in the world is beyond its reach. Today, I would like to experience it for myself. I wonder how much true legacy of Grand Emperor Shenxing you have inherited. The 9 Dao ancestor said calmly. In the path of speed, Shenxing had always reigned supreme. Even the 9 Dao ancestor could not deny this. The two stood opposed, their presences shaking heaven and earth. Before they even exchanged blows, the world was already beginning to quake. Endless storms surged, and the void fractured invisibly. Meanwhile, on Su Zimo's side, although the God Emperor was temporarily trapped, many powerful ancestors of the Divine Gate had still appeared. As for the dark primordial race, 10 beams of radiance soared into the sky. The brilliance was dazzling beyond measure. Even immortals could not pierce the mysteries within. But the vast aura emanating from them was such that no one dared look down upon them. They were the 10 death gods of dark primordial, the absolute rulers. With this colossal race, they had once clashed head-on with the beast race during the desolate era, sparking the dark primordial rebellion. That brief upheaval became a small age between the desolate era and the imperial era. Comrades, today we shall annihilate this place and together forge a new era, declared the Sky Shroud War God, standing at the front. He took a deep breath and spoke faintly. Once the immortal extinction sacred ground was destroyed, and if Su Zimo could bear the heaven's will, then the true martial sacred ground would become a lineage of 5 grand emperors. It would ascend to dominion over the world. And with the alliance of the Divine Gate and Dark Primordial, that depends on whether you have the strength, the Supreme Ancestor replied coldly. Kill! Su Zimo roared from the vanguard, and at his shout all forces surged forward, charging toward the immortal mountain. In an instant, the heavens collapsed, eternal space was annihilated. The void shattered, endless spatial turbulence raged, as if all of creation itself were crumbling. That day bore no sun, only fine rain drifting gently through the void. Sky Shroud, let us fight in the higher void. This world cannot withstand our power, the Supreme Ancestor said. Just what I intended. The Sky Shroud War God nodded. With a single great hand, he overturned the entire firmament, making it flow in reverse. The sound of slaughter and the spilling of blood fell upon the world. Chaos reigned. Nearly everyone had joined the battle. Explosions thundered unceasingly, like the heavens themselves cracking with lightning. It was a scene of doomsday. 10,000 miles in every direction were engulfed in the storm. Su Zimo raised his head, his eyes calm, and slowly walked toward the immortal mountain. He had barely taken a few steps when the sacred lord of the immortal extinction sacred ground, Feng Tianya, blocked his path. Holy Sun Su, why don't you let me test your strength? Feng Tianya said coolly. Su Zimo glanced at him, then shook his head. You are too weak. This was not boastfulness. Feng Tianya's strength was only just at arcane immortal, roughly the same as sacred Lord Shao. Su Zimo understood this well. The qualifications to be a sacred lord were not about being invincible, unrivaled, or the strongest. Rather, it was about management, the ability to lead a sect to prosperity and growth. An excellent sacred lord was not necessarily the strongest cultivator, but was surely a capable leader. Many experts, once they reached arcane immortal, would retreat into enlightenment. Some secluded themselves for thousands of years. How could they still manage a sect? Take Su Qingshan for instance, once a renowned prodigy in his youth. Yet, after becoming vice lord, his cultivation slowed to a crawl. Not due to lack of talent, but because he no longer had time to train. In this world, few could truly have both the fish and the bear's paw. Weak or not, you'll know only if you try, Feng Tianya replied lightly. Just as he was about to make his move, someone stopped him. Tianya, step back. An aged voice resounded. Within the immortal mountain, a certain cave residence radiated dazzling light, like an illusory mortal paradise. From within that radiance, an old man in multicolored robes stepped out. With a single stride into the void, he spanned 100 miles, arriving before the two of them. Master, you've emerged from seclusion, Feng Tianya said, quickly bowing. These years have been hard on you, the old man sighed softly. Back then, I took 3 disciples. All 3 of you were brilliant and pure-hearted in pursuit of the Tao. Yet, in the end, I hardened my heart for the sect's sake and severed your path. Master, the past is gone. Feng Tianya shook his head gently. I have long since let it go. Go take charge of the greater battle then. Leave this place to me. The old man nodded. He knew this was no time for reminiscing. Turning to Su Zimo, he chuckled. After so many ages of seclusion, this new world has changed so much I can barely recognize it. I never thought someone would dare bring war to our immortal extinction sacred ground. What should I call you? Su Zimo asked. He could feel the man's aura. It was like a boundless ocean, vast and endless. Though the old man's body was frail, the force around him suppressed heaven and earth, making every breath heavy with pressure. My name, I myself have nearly forgotten it. It has been far too long since anyone has spoken it. The old man smiled faintly. I only vaguely recall, in the age before my seclusion, some called me Heaven Paragon. You may call me Martial Heaven Paragon. He let out a long sigh. His gaze swept across the battlefield, flames raging in all directions. Life's grand ambitions of 30,000 years. Nothing more than a fleeting dream. Martial Heaven Paragon. Su Zimo tilted his head, pondering briefly. At last he smiled. Ah yes, I remember now. The abandoned child of the immortal extinction's sacred ground. The story of Martial Heaven Paragon's life was nothing if not inspiring. He was born the illegitimate son of the previous sacred lord and a lowly maid. From birth he was oppressed, even cast out of the sect. But through his own perseverance, he returned to the sect. And in that era, he even rose to become the new sacred lord of the immortal extinction sacred ground. Abandoned child once, perhaps, Martial Heaven Paragon nodded calmly, unfazed. Most lives are not the same. As an abandoned child, some might dream of destroying the immortal extinction sacred ground, taking revenge and relishing in it. But in this world, countless prodigies and heroes die on battlefields every single day. Compared to their obscure and forgotten deaths, Martial Heaven Paragon clearly chose another path. He proved his worth to the immortal extinction sacred ground, was recruited back, and eventually became the sacred lord of the previous generation. That was his life. Martial Heaven Paragon also faced his own life squarely. Looking at Su Zimo, he said, Since matters have come to this point, there is no room for negotiation. After today, either my immortal extinction sacred ground perishes, or your true martial sacred ground dies. At his side, the might of one at the zenith immortal realm surged. His 7-colored robe blazed with divine light, a rainbow of radiance shooting skyward. It became a rain of multicolored brilliance, weaving a rainbow road across the gray and gloomy heavens. I heard you stepped into immortality through martial arts, capable of mastering every martial discipline under heaven, Su Zimo said with a faint smile. Now I'd like to test it myself. What does it mean to step into immortality through martial arts? Most people think that once you reach the immortal path, you are a true immortal. But that is a mistake. Becoming immortal, becoming an emperor, these are merely stages on the endless, winding path of cultivation. Compared to true immortals, they still fall far short. And what are true immortals? The storytellers in city tea houses have long claimed. There are indeed immortals in this world. Some roam the drifting clouds, some appear in bustling marketplaces, some dwell in ancient temples deep in the mountains, and some live freely upon distant fairy isles. The greatest difference between immortals and mortals is that they sever the 7 emotions and 6 desires. They have no wants, no cravings. Thus, becoming immortal, being a true immortal, and entering immortality through martial arts are 3 distinct things. Becoming immortal is merely a realm. A true immortal is an actual eternal being. And stepping into immortality through martial arts means pushing the path of martial arts to its ultimate extreme, to a point of mastery so profound it is akin to the divine, hence called immortal. But the end of martial arts is still martial arts. Immortal here is only a title of reverence. That is why people came to call him Martial Heaven Paragon. "Please enlighten me," Martial Heaven Paragon said. He swept his right hand, and a flash of sword light glimmered in the distance. He gathered heaven and earth's spiritual energy, condensing a long sword into his grip. With sword in hand, any form he invoked seemed effortless, as though martial and mind were one, the blade moving in harmony with his thoughts. Raging waves overwhelmed the sky. The long sword descended, a seemingly simple tidal sword technique, but in his hands, it unleashed breathtaking might. Like a masterpiece of gods and demons, flawless and transcendent. Waves 1,000 fathoms high annihilated the void, his sword transforming into a monstrous tidal surge, roaring and crashing toward Su Zimo. Su Zimo's blade, Shadow Tyrant, drew itself from its sheath. A world-shaking blade aura swept through the void, cleaving the onrushing tide in 2. The water split, surging past his sides as he strode forward step by step. Flooding tide. Martial Heaven Paragon swung again. The divided waves transformed into an endless river and sea, the rise and fall of tides carrying faint traces of Taoist profundity. The cycles of arising and passing, the endless rotation of reincarnation, all revealed within the crash of each wave. With a thunderous boom, the tides engulfed Su Zimo, the crushing force hurling him high into the sky. Martial Heaven Paragon swung once more. This strike carried no trace of sword intent, only the pure essence of the grand Tao itself. Those at the Nirvana void realm comprehend primal Taos. Those who step into the path of immortality comprehend nomological truths. And Martial Heaven Paragon, now at the pinnacle of the immortal path, seemed to be brushing the threshold of primal Taos, though still far away. His nomological truth was aligned with water, but at the same time not entirely so. Su Zimo did not fully understand the intricacies of the immortal path. Water element truths surged from the long sword, his inner meridians roaring with power, channels bursting open one after another with resounding cracks. All rivers return to the source, Martial Heaven Paragon shouted. The tides that had buried Su Zimo converged once again, condensing into an unparalleled tsunami. The heavens around were obliterated. Even other combatants nearby were swept away by the sheer force of the waters. Above, the fine drizzle mingled seamlessly with the waves. No one could tell rain from sea. The skies blazed with thunder, lightning tearing down in jagged bolts. Beneath that dark, oppressive firmament, titanic waves soared tens of thousands of feet high, surging like a wrathful sea to drown everything. Torrents swallowed the heavens, white waves engulfed the skies. Immortal Mountain itself seemed cast adrift for 10,000 miles. Martial Heaven Paragon's gaze was calm as he looked toward the heart of the deluge. When the endless tide seemed to bury all, suddenly, a long blade tore out of the waves, trailing blood and storm, splitting a colossal wave as it cleaved toward him at lightning speed. Martial Heaven Paragon hastily raised his sword in defense. With a deafening crash, Shadow Tyrant struck his blade's hilt, spun, and flew past. The sheer force of the blow drove him back 5 or 6 steps. Then, as the blade spun back, a great hand caught it. Suzumo emerged from the waves, striding forward. "Paragon, is that all?" Suzumo said with a faint laugh. "In that case, I too will stop holding back," Martial Heaven Paragon replied evenly. "If Holy Sun Su can break this strike of mine, then I shall admit defeat." He pressed his palms together, standing still in the void, immortal energy radiating from his body. His eyes were calm. His voice rang with clarity and force as he uttered 4 words, dust-severing immortal scripture. "It seems I underestimated you," Suzumo said with a smile, sensing the overwhelming force gathering around his foe. "I thought you had only entered immortality through martial arts. I didn't expect you to cultivate a true immortal scripture. Once, as a wandering recluse, I came upon this immortal scripture. Though I did not ascend to immortality, I forged a fusion of martial and immortal arts," Martial Heaven Paragon said calmly. "I created a few techniques of my own. I would ask Holy Sun Su to appraise them." At this moment, 2 currents of Tao power swirled around Martial Heaven Paragon. One was martial, one was immortal. As they merged, the void shuddered with violent tremors, ripples spreading across space. And the instant they fully fused, the surrounding void shattered, not cracked, but pulverized into dust. Within the howling torrents of chaotic void, Martial Heaven Paragon's 7-colored robe flared with sharp whistling sounds. His long sword vanished, replaced by a colossal battle axe. He held it aloft, endless sharpness radiating from its edge. "Heaven-splitting strike!" Martial Heaven Paragon roared, stamping his foot upon the void. In the blink of an eye, he closed the distance to Suzumo. The immense axe fell straight down, its edge so fierce that even Suzumo felt a flicker of awe. Suzumo's figure darted aside. With a thunderous boom, the strike landed, annihilating everything within miles of space. It was as if the heavens themselves had been cleaved apart, the sky collapsing utterly. The might of a single axe, enough to destroy heaven and earth. "Not bad," Suzumo nodded slightly. "Holy Sun Su, why dodge? Face me head-on, what say you?" Martial Heaven Paragon bellowed with laughter. At that moment, he seemed not like an immortal paragon, but a simple martial warrior, returning to the true essence of battle. A martial warrior like an immortal, seeking the highest truths from the simplest realms. The dust-severing immortal scripture was exactly such a path. Neither wholly detached, nor wholly mundane. The meaning behind the heaven-splitting strike was creation itself. When Martial Heaven Paragon raised the colossal axe and struck down, he seemed like one of the primeval sages of a vast ancient era, an awe-inspiring figure who split the heavens apart. Another axe came cleaving down. Suzumo unleashed the 10 forms of demon, using the form of Realm Demon. Spatial force surged around him, projecting an identical void in his surroundings. But the power of the axe exceeded even Suzumo's expectations. With a single blow, space shattered, countless mirror images collapsed. The strike crashed heavily beside him, and the sheer impact forced him back several steps. "What's this? Holy Sun Su, do you only know how to dodge?" Martial Heaven Paragon taunted as he advanced, words meant to unsettle his opponent's mind. "If it's strength you want to compare, then I'll oblige you," Suzumo replied coolly. His right hand lifted Shadow Tyrant, raising the blade ever so slightly. 10 forms of demon. 5th form. Mortal demon. Annihilation of creation. Endless infernal force coiled around him. Within it was the essence of utter extinction, condensed in the palm of his hand. Heaven's power is boundless, and contending with heaven is a joy. But the power of man is also boundless, greater even than heaven itself. That is why mortals can overcome the heavens. Amidst the surging infernal force, Suzumo invoked the heaven-shattering God Scripture. Countless power vortexes within his body and within his soul spun wildly, resonating. Behind him, The towering figure of the heaven-shattering giant rose skyward, immense and domineering. Once born of pure force spirals, now infused with infernal force, the giant's entire form turned pitch black. Its eyes glowed scarlet, radiating destruction and annihilation. When martial heaven Paragon's axe came cleaving down again, Su Zimo's gaze flashed with demonic light, and he slashed upward to meet it head-on. With a deafening boom, an invisible pressure exploded outward between them. The surrounding void erupted, detonating. Sparks and thunder filled the sky as martial heaven Paragon's figure was blasted backward. Again, Su Zimo roared, striding into the void, his blade aura spanning 3,000 miles like a rainbow arcing upside down, an endless torrent of steel. Beneath the vast heavens, amidst thunder and lightning, there was nothing but boundless battle. Heaven-splitting, earth-crushing, spirit-shattering, heaven and earth cleaving. Martial heaven Paragon spoke the words one by one. With each word, his aura surged stronger. It was a chain sequence of techniques, each strike heavier than the last. The colossal axe in his grip seemed to grow impossibly heavy, like a mountain tearing through storms, hacking through all obstacles. Hurricanes howled, ripping into tornadoes, space tore apart, lightning flashed across the heavens. Blade and axe clashed, no fancy tricks, only pure force against pure force. The heaven-shattering giant roared, its infernal force blanketing the sky. With each of martial heaven Paragon's escalating strikes, Su Zimo struggled more and more to keep up, but still he refused to retreat. He had not experienced such a fierce and exhilarating battle in a long time. One of the 10 primordial god scriptures, God-Demon Creation Atlas. It was said that in primordial times, god-demons walked the earth, towering billions of feet high, their heads brushing the heavens, their feet melting into the earth, plucking the sun and moon with a casual gesture. Each stride of theirs spanned half a world. Their might was unmatched. Of course, these were only legends. Yet now, in Su Zimo's mind, within his sea of consciousness, a god-demon diagram began to form. Figures of true primordial demons emerged, colossal, terrifying, each with unique forms, roaring as they evolved endlessly within his spirit sea. When Su Zimo opened his eyes again, he felt as if he had become one of those primordial demons himself. His body surged with unimaginable strength. Clutching Shadow Tyrant with both hands, he swung down. His long hair dyed entirely by infernal force. Another thunderous explosion shook the battlefield as his blade collided with martial heaven Paragon once more. This time, Su Zimo pressed his opponent down, his strikes growing ever fiercer, his advantage clearer with each exchange. "You are defeated," Su Zimo said coldly after several rounds, his blade erupting with unprecedented might as it cleaved downward. Martial heaven Paragon failed to dodge in time. His right arm was severed cleanly. But at the moment of impact, a smile crept across his face. Primordial binding. This was the culmination of his full chain technique. From heaven-splitting, earth-crushing, spirit-shattering, heaven and earth cleaving, to this final strike, primordial binding. Though his arm was gone, the colossal axe in his hand dissolved into a stream of energy. That energy twisted into a cord, binding Su Zimo tightly. "The true loser is you," Martial Heaven Paragon said softly. He looked at the struggling Su Zimo, exhaling deeply. "If you had not come to destroy my sect, if you had instead pursued the heaven's will, then with your strength, you might well have become a grand emperor. But alas, you could not restrain your impatience." Yet before his words had even finished, Su Zimo ignored him. Slowly, he raised his head, scarlet light flickering in his eyes. Murderous intent condensed. A violet-black demonic sigil spread from his neck, his hell-suppressing demon physique awakening. At the same time, another of the 10 primordial god scriptures activated, Heaven-Earth Dharma Codex. The cords binding him snapped apart. His body swelled to tens of thousands of feet tall, like a true primordial demon reborn. He strode forth from the dust of antiquity, carrying unstoppable might. Su Zimo raised his massive hand and slapped downward. Martial Heaven Paragon's body was sent flying, crashing into the immortal mountain. The mountain's peak shattered under the blow. All around, countless eyes widened in shock at the giant shadow looming in the void. Martial Heaven Paragon coughed blood, his internal organs destroyed, his right arm gone. He had no strength left to resist. Su Zimo's voice thundered. His massive palm struck down again, his long hair blazing crimson like a burning flame. The demonic sigils glowed ever brighter. In the distance, Treasure Taoist watched with bloodshot eyes. As Su Zimo's colossal palm descended, half of the immortal mountain crumbled away. Locked in combat with the 10 death gods, he faced Death God Qin. With a flash of golden light in his hand, Treasure Taoist roared, "Seize!" The golden light became a barrier, momentarily trapping Death God Qin. "Impudent brat! Stop at once!" Treasure Taoist shouted in fury, charging toward Su Zimo. Treasures surged from his body, countless artifacts and relics filling the sky. It was as if he himself were a walking treasury. "Piss off!" Su Zimo roared. His voice rolled like heavenly thunder, his massive palm covering the heavens. No matter what treasures or radiant powers Treasure Taoist unleashed, they were useless against it. With that palm strike, Treasure Taoist's figure was sent flying backward. The brilliance of several treasures around him dimmed and fell. A great cauldron of violet-green light, a divine sword radiating sharpness, and even a statue infused with the ferocious might of a sacred beast. Yet all these treasures, without exception, were annihilated within Su Zimo's palm strike. At this moment, Su Zimo's body had expanded to 33,000 meters in height, like a god-demon suppressing the world. His eyes glowed with piercing radiance, his shoulders seemed to carry the heavens, and the boundless might in his palm pressed down unstoppably. Another strike came crashing down, shaking heaven and earth. The skies darkened, the land quaked and split open. Countless fissures spiderwebbed across the ground, bottomless abysses spreading beneath his feet. Even the towering, majestic, immortal mountain crumbled violently. From within came endless roars of rage, rumbling like thunder. That mountain, which had stood silent for countless eras, nearly symbolizing the very pinnacle of the sacred ground, was finally reduced to rubble. The jagged stones, strange winds, wondrous sceneries, jade pavilions, and waterfalls descending into the mortal realm, all seemed to vanish together with this colossus that had ruled countless ages, dissolving into the storm. The disciples of the immortal extinction sacred ground were all bloodshot-eyed with grief. Some old ancestors, even with grievous injuries and regardless of life or death, charged madly toward Su Zimo. This mountain represented everything to them. It was like their home. The immortal mists dispersed, yet Su Zimo stood tall in the void, utterly unafraid. His gaze swept across everything, taking it all in. Looking toward the binding power of order that trapped the God Emperor, he said, "You from inside, and I from outside, will attack together and break this open." "Very well," the God Emperor nodded solemnly. Su Zimo raised his right hand high, thunder and wind trembling in his palm. Boundless spiritual energy poured down like rain, condensing into spiritual liquid, rivers hanging upside down, the heavens collapsing. With Shadow Tyrant in his grasp, he struck downward with immense force. At the same time, the God Emperor stood solemn and firm, divine might surging, his own force clashing against Su Zimo's strike. The God Tao, the power of order, and infernal force interwove in an instant. With a deafening boom, the void imprisoning the God Emperor exploded completely. Moments later, divine might erupted. The God Emperor emerged, stepping into the void, his gaze sharp as he swept across the battlefield. The great battle gradually ceased. Both sides separated, retreating to their positions. In the void, the supreme ancestor of the immortal extinction sacred ground struck out with one palm, turbulent space currents raging past him. Yet he was forced back several steps. Looking at the Sky Shroud war god opposite him, he let out a deep sigh. "Sky Shroud, you have won." From the very start, Victory was never yours, Sky Shroud War God said calmly. You thought we relied on the God Emperor. In truth, no, he was never the protagonist. With this youth here, what meaning does this so-called battle for heavens will have? His eyes pierced the endless void, landing on Su Zimo's figure. Su Zimo stood like a god-demon, his aura world-shaking. Why was such a monstrous talent not born into my immortal extinction sacred ground? Such is time, such is fate. The supreme ancestor sighed again. From his mouth, to declare that the heavens will struggle no longer mattered, showed how highly he regarded Su Zimo. Throughout history, the battles for heavens had always been filled with controversy. No one ever fully accepted another as the rightful bearer. After all, was not every contender a heaven-defying genius? There was even the Heaven's Pride ranking, where people voted for their chosen prodigies. Every generation had countless bearers of heaven's will, and upsets were frequent. But this time, the supreme ancestor had a premonition. This era's heavens will struggle might be the least suspenseful of all. Perhaps only if every heaven's pride joined forces to eliminate Su Zimo early would there be the slightest chance. His mind swirled with countless thoughts. Yet no matter what, the fate of his immortal extinction sacred ground was already sealed. Sky Shroud, may we speak of terms? The supreme ancestor asked. Discuss them with him, Sky Shroud War God replied, looking down at Su Zimo. This time, I am not the one in charge. Su Zimo looked at Ji Ruobing before him. As the saintess of the immortal extinction sacred ground, the two had once been friends. After parting ways in the land of destruction, he hadn't expected their reunion to be like this. Must it really come to this? Ji Ruobing asked in confusion, her eyes lost. This mountain was her home, filled with countless memories. It already has, Su Zimo replied. It didn't have to be this way, Ji Ruobing said. I advised the sect not to interfere in your affairs. But Lu Changhan's faction insisted on using this to boost their prestige. Su Zimo understood. The sacred ground had long been split into two factions, one led by Saintess Ji Ruobing, and the other by Holy Son Lu Changhan. The two had always contended in the shadows. Lu Changhan's faction likely saw this matter as a way to increase influence and suppress Ji Ruobing's side. Originally, the script was written across the continent, so many imperial lineages wanted Su Zimo dead. His death should have been inevitable. But who could have foreseen that a grand emperor still lived? The fall of Bailey City, imperial lineages apologizing en masse, and countless others fleeing in terror. And now, the immortal extinction sacred ground had provoked this colossal disaster. Su Zimo had even given them a chance, Lu Changhan's head as recompense. Yet the sect refused. They would not bow. Perhaps it was because this great sect of 5 grand emperors had never bowed its head to anyone. You still don't understand? Su Zimo asked, looking at the dazed Ji Ruobing. This is my era. I will not permit any force to oppose me. Your immortal extinction sacred ground has only 2 choices. Tuck your tail and submit, or be destroyed by me. Unfortunately, you failed to grasp this truth. Or perhaps you understood but refused to accept it. Ji Ruobing took a deep breath, unable to refute. And where is Lu Changhan? Su Zimo asked with a cold smile. After all this fighting, the so-called protagonist hides like a turtle in its shell. As his words fell, Feng Tianya arrived, escorting Lu Changhan at his side. This was Su Zimo's first face-to-face with Lu Changhan. Yet the young man before him lacked all the lofty arrogance of the holy son of the immortal extinction sacred ground. Instead, he seemed timid, unable even to meet Su Zimo's eyes. Weren't you going to eliminate demons and uphold the grand Tao? Su Zimo mocked. Here I am before you. I'll give you that chance. This is a misunderstanding, Holy Son Su, Lu Changhan stammered. Enough, came a sigh nearby. The supreme ancestor and Sky Shroud War God descended side by side. For figures of their level, a single battle was not decided so quickly. Holy Son Su, may you spare our immortal extinction sacred ground a single thread of life? The patriarch said directly. Name your conditions. As long as we can meet them, we will surely agree. If in the future you ascend to the outer heavens, take it as a favor from our sacred ground. The Supreme Ancestor seemed to have seen through everything. His words carried great weight. Not only did he promise that the immortal extinction sacred ground would agree to any condition, he even pledged the favor of their 5 founding ancestors. You dare to make decisions on behalf of your ancestors? Su Zimo asked calmly. Holy Sun Su need not worry, the Supreme Ancestor replied. Though the ancestors cannot descend here, they are aware of what happens. What I say, they will recognize. The ancestors in his mouth were naturally the 5 grand emperors of the immortal extinction sacred ground. With his own cultivation and seniority, there was no one else he would ever address in such a manner. Su Zimo glanced at the Sky Shroud War God, who gave a slight nod, confirming the truth of the statement. In fact, the same was true for their own true martial sacred ground. Many times their forebears could still be contacted. Su Zimo chuckled lightly. This feels rather like mending the pen after the sheep have already escaped. Holy Sun Su, state your conditions, the Supreme Ancestor urged. The first, before the entire continent, your sect must apologize to me, Su Zimo said. Agreed. The Supreme Ancestor nodded without hesitation. The second, Su Zimo's eyes shifted toward Lu Chonghen. He will die, the Supreme Ancestor replied bluntly. Ancestor, I don't want to die, Lu Chonghen cried out in panic. Holy Sun Su, please spare me. I'll do anything if you let me live. But no one paid him any mind. Su Zimo continued with a smile. From today onward, there shall be no more immortal extinction sacred ground in this world. What does Holy Sun Su mean by that? Feng Tianya asked from behind. Can't you understand? Su Zimo replied coldly. I may spare your lives, but you are forbidden from ever again establishing a sect. His words left everyone in silence. What's wrong? Weren't you so eager to promise me anything? Now you can't. Su Zimo's tone carried faint mockery. State all your demands at once, the Supreme Ancestor said evenly. If you wish to rebuild the sect, Su Zimo replied, it is possible, but aside from you, every other elder must cripple their cultivation. His intent was clear. Either swear to heaven never to rebuild the sect, or sacrifice their strength. You should discuss this among yourselves. I don't have much time to waste here, Su Zimo said. This sect cannot be destroyed, Mountain Ancestor said quietly, eyes closed. The 9 Dao Ancestor and the Celestial Heretic Ancestor exchanged glances, then declared, We 4 are willing to cripple our cultivation. We only beg Holy Sun Su to keep his word and spare the sect's lineage. Then begin, Su Zimo nodded. The 4 shared a look, then reversed their energy flow, surging it toward their true fate. The true fate was the most vital core of a cultivator. If shattered, at best one's cultivation would be completely lost. At worst, one would die outright. Their powerful aura flared, their faces flushing red. Then each spat out a mouthful of blood. The flush drained away, leaving their faces pale as paper. Their aura collapsed instantly, withered and weak. They seemed to age decades in moments, their bodies frail enough to need support just to stand. These were beings who had lived through countless eras, yet now, having abolished their cultivation, they likely had only 1 or 2 years left before death. Ancestors! Feng Tianya cried in anguish. Tianya, remember this, 9 Dao Ancestor said weakly. Even if the sect is destroyed, it can be rebuilt. Rebuilding means hope. Holy Sun Su, do you have any other demands? The Supreme Ancestor asked again. With a casual wave of his hand, he tossed Lu Chonghen's corpse onto the ground before Su Zimo. You do have some courage, Su Zimo said with a faint laugh. Let us hope you bear no hatred for me. The law of victors and vanquished, I understand it well, the Supreme Ancestor said. That you grant us a path of survival. For that, I am grateful. Su Zimo turned to all those gathered. Everyone disperse. This matter ends here. Consider it as me owing you a favor. Holy Sun Su's favor is no small debt, Death God Qin replied with a smile. But he still led the dark primordials away. For their race to see the daylight again, to re-establish themselves, they had no choice but to rely on Su Zimo. The God Emperor gave Su Zimo a nod before departing with the divine gate. Su Zimo lowered his gaze to the ruined remains of the immortal mountain. With a wave of his right hand, the land itself quaked. Though the mountain was destroyed, the immortal extinction's sacred ground had accumulated unfathomable resources over endless eras, resources vital for any sect's growth. Before everyone's eyes, Su Zimo gathered the ruins of the immortal mountain into his true fate world. Of course, he did not reveal his true fate itself, only tore open a rift in the God world to store it away. The expressions of the immortal extinction sacred ground disciples were indescribable. Before leaving, Su Zimo glanced once at Ji Ruobing, then said lightly, "By the way, I was once a friend of your sect's saintess. What a pity." Watching Su Zimo's departing back, the disciples of the immortal extinction sacred ground finally let out the breath they had been holding. They could not explain it, but with his departure, a crushing pressure lifted from their hearts. "Ancestor, what should we do now?" Feng Tianya asked the Supreme Ancestor. "Announce to the entire continent, apologize to the true martial sacred ground's holy sun," the Supreme Ancestor instructed. "This matter must also be reported to the ancestors. He may be rampant now on the primordial heartlands, but once in the outer heavens, he will pay the price," Feng Tianya said bitterly. "You think the ancestors are unaware?" the Supreme Ancestor countered. "Then why?" Feng Tianya froze, unable to grasp it. "From this day, we must never be enemies with the true martial sacred ground," the Supreme Ancestor ordered, giving no further explanation. "As for rebuilding the sect, you are now the Sacred Lord. This will be your responsibility." After a pause, he added, "But do not rebuild until it is certain he carries the heaven's will." "I understand, Ancestor," Feng Tianya nodded. "Also, make her—" The Supreme Ancestor's eyes lingered on Ji Ruoshue, the successor for the next generation's Sacred Lord. "As for this time's heavens will struggle, our immortal extinction sacred ground will withdraw." "I understand," Feng Tianya answered. "Then everything begins anew," the Supreme Ancestor murmured, gazing at the far horizon. He turned to the other 4 crippled ancestors. "Old friends, let us go. Enjoy the last years of your lives in peace." On the road back, Lin Ruhu asked curiously, "Brother Zimo, why spare them? You already destroyed their sect. Why not finish the job?" "You think I didn't want to?" Su Zimo chuckled softly. He lifted his gaze toward the skies above the clouds. The drizzle had ceased, yet the heavens remained heavy and gray. In the end, it is still the outer heavens that hold dominion. At the moment he destroyed the immortal extinction's sacred ground, Su Zimo felt several powerful gazes pierce through the void from the depths of the heavens, falling upon him. Their attitudes were hard to read. By sparing the sect, he had left them in name only. Without resources, rebuilding was possible, but regaining their former glory was nearly impossible. Leaving one of the 5 old ancestors was their last shelter. As for the other experts, many had died or been crippled in the war, leaving barely a tenth of their strength intact. By letting them live, not only could the great emperors not hate him, they even owed him a favor. This was the price of the immortal extinction sacred ground's survival. In truth, the conflict between him and them was not entirely irreconcilable. The key figure was simply Lu Chonghen. That matter was concluded. The colossal body of chaos carried everyone toward the true martial sacred ground, while Su Zimo stopped midway to return once more to the God world. As for the sky-blue demon rock, a nirvana void beast, after a series of disciplines it had finally submitted. Though Su Zimo had not personally witnessed the process. He looked at Paimon and the others and asked, "How is the development of the God world now?" "No overly powerful beings have appeared. Everything is well," Paimon replied. He acted in Su Zimo's place to oversee the land, like the heavenly Tao itself keeping order. Heaven's will is about to take form. Once I bear it, this world will be transformed once again, Suzumo said. By then, it will be time to head to the outer heavens. Good. After all, the outer heavens is the true battlefield. Paimon nodded. How is your cultivation? Suzumo asked. Paimon and the others had already opened 10 meridian gates. Upon reaching the outer heavens, they would be saint sovereigns. One must know, even grand emperors who bore heavens will had only opened 9 gates. Beyond Saint Sovereign was the infinite Tao realm. That meant 11 meridian gates. During these days, Suzumo had used the heavenly Tao of the God world to guide their comprehension directly. The Tao itself was before their eyes, all its rules manifest in the void. Conditions like these were things others could never experience in a lifetime. Paimon smiled and shook his head. Infinite Tao is not so easily understood. Even with the heavenly Tao placed before me, it is not something achievable in such a short time. But there are already some clues. That's good. Suzumo nodded, then instructed. I have kept the myriad beast realm hidden because their strength is too great. If they appeared openly, they might disrupt the world's development. But for now, they can begin to reveal a small part of themselves and return to the world. He knew he should not interfere too much in the world's development. All things grew according to their own laws. The less ignorant and the more evolved the world became, the less he should intervene. But at times, he could not allow beings that might destroy his world to exist. The myriad beast realm was the best solution for this. They were controlled by him from the shadows. Things he could not personally do, they could do for him. Hearing this, Paimon nodded slightly. I'll take care of it. Do not reveal too much at once, Suzumo reminded. Then he withdrew from the God world. The season had turned to autumn. Yellowing leaves mirrored the desolation and chill of this era's middle continent. The sky was dark, shrouded in heavy clouds. The news of the immortal extinction sacred grounds defeat spread instantly to the great imperial lineages, then to first and second-tier forces. Before long, the entire continent knew, even the wandering cultivators and common folk. A sect of 5 emperors had fallen, their mountain destroyed, 4 of the old ancestors crippling themselves just to preserve the sect. And they had publicly apologized to the holy son of the true martial sacred ground. This news struck like thunder, shaking everyone's hearts. Before the battle, though some favored the true martial sacred ground, they thought it would be mutual slaughter at most. No one expected the immortal extinction sacred ground to lose so utterly. It seemed this era was destined to be ruled by the true martial sacred ground. Unless Suzumo failed to bear heaven's will, that was the only chance for other forces to rise. Already so strong before carrying heaven's will, once he became emperor, no one else would have a future. Many sects were anxious, but all warned their disciples not to provoke anyone from the true martial sacred ground. Upon returning, Suzumo went to see the third elder, Lin Ruhu's grandfather. Third elder, how is the matter I entrusted to you? Suzumo asked with a smile. It's almost done, the elder replied with a smile. But you should go see the sacred lord. I believe he has something to say to you. Sacred Lord Shao? Suzumo chuckled. Don't hold too much against him. He has his own difficulties, the elder said. I understand. Suzumo nodded. He was not petty. Since he had agreed with the Sky Shroud war god, he would not quibble over the matter. After saying farewell, he went to the island where Sacred Lord Shao resided. The man in green robes had clearly been waiting a long time. You've come, Shao said. The third elder told me to find you. Suzumo nodded. The Tao race's location has been found. Their holy son should be within their clan, Shao said. Because the Tao race hides from the world, they live in a particle world of their own. I captured one of them. He can take you inside. Thank you, Suzumo nodded. For now, nearly all debts and enmities were settled, except for the Lord of Samsara. After reincarnating, he had become the Tao race's holy son. Suzumo knew this. As Suzumo was about to leave, Shao quickly said, About last time, I owe you an apology. I had already forgotten. Let's not mention it. Su Zimo waved without turning back. Some things needed no words. Both sides understood. Watching Su Zimo's departing figure, Xiao remained silent for a moment, then chuckled softly. Returning to South Goose Mountain, Su Zimo did not head immediately for the Dao race. He intended to let the sect handle that, while he himself rested and prepared for the coming heaven's will. Looking toward the sky, he saw heaven's will nearly complete. An ancient grand Dao stretched across the heavens from one end to the other. It suffused the vast void above. Above the heaven's will, endless refining radiance surged. One could not see its end. It was the condensed essence of the grand Dao of an entire era. People often said entering the Dao was harder than ascending the heavens. Because the Dao was not open, even a powerhouse of the God Meridian realm could not touch it, let alone truly step into it. Thus the heavens will existed. A rightful path leading toward the Dao, though arduous and far, still countless people would step upon it. The heavens will was like dazzling starlight, like the blazing sun. Whether day or night, it hung prominently in the firmament. When mortals raised their heads to gaze, that was the goal of their lifetime. One heavens will represented the entirety of an era. In the afternoon, led by Sacred Lord Xiao with several ancestors following, the true martial sacred sect marched to punish the Dao race. Su Zimo did not go. This battle did not require him. Because the Dao race never intended to resist. Even though the Lord of Samsara was their holy son, for the sake of preserving the race, he was still surrendered. On South Goose Mountain, Su Zimo stood atop the summit. The cold wind cut down like a blade. He remembered the day he was reborn also on this very peak. Time felt fleeting, as if so many events, when he turned to look back, were still just at hand. He turned his head. The Lord of Samsara, sealed in his meridians, was bound and kneeling before him. "There's something I've always wanted to ask you," the Lord of Samsara said. He appeared calm, perhaps knowing death was certain. There was no begging, no struggle. Only endless desolation and a sense of release lingered on his face. "Go ahead," Su Zimo nodded. "Why do you target Chu Yang so much? Is it only because of Bailey Xiao?" The elder asked. "I understand a bit of fortune reading," he continued, "and once observed Chu Yang. His luck was so immense, like the purple star shining over the east, ruling all stars. He was truly the chosen one." At this, the Lord of Samsara sighed deeply. "If not for you, he would surely have become a grand emperor in the future." "Is this question that important?" Su Zimo smiled faintly. "To think, at the final moment, what weighs on your heart is still this. Like a thorn in my throat, I cannot let it go." The Lord of Samsara shook his head. "Will you not tell me the true reason? Why should a dying man know so much?" Su Zimo replied with a laugh. "But one thing you said is right, he was indeed a chosen one. That is exactly why he had to die. Do you understand?" Hearing this, the Lord of Samsara's expression showed clear dissatisfaction. "How do you plan to deal with me?" he asked. "Aren't you known as Samsara? Then I'll let you fall into the cycle of Samsara, suffer endless torment, until your soul is utterly destroyed." Su Zimo said with a smile. "I see. Why not grant me a swift end?" "Why should I grant you one?" Su Zimo countered. The elder fell silent. When Su Zimo first created the God world, he already mastered the 6 paths of Samsara. Now he separated the beast path and Preta path. With a wave of his right hand, endless power of Samsara surged around him. From the beast path arose countless phantoms of ferocious beasts. From the Preta path, hideous, ravenous spirits devoid of humanity. The force of Samsara twisted into whirlpools, dragging the Lord of Samsara's figure inside. Su Zimo heard his screams of agony, then turned away calmly, leaving the summit of South Goose Mountain. One of the 10 forbidden grounds, the infinite immortal mountain. At this moment, immortal mists shrouded it. The mountain drifted deep within the endless heavenly sea, wandering with the tides. It was towering and vast, but its true form was never fully seen. On a lonely peak, Jiang Macho sat in meditation. His aura was astonishing. The blazing flames of the scarlet flame imperial physique burned around him. Now he had fully fused with this body, golden flames gathering in his eyes. As he opened them and cast just one glance afar, the sea surface exploded. From the sky above, meteors descended in torrents. Thunderous detonations echoed everywhere. Jiang Macho slowly stood. Dressed in golden robes, he walked toward the central peak. "Master, you called me?" he asked the old man before him. The Lord of Nihility slowly nodded, lifting his gaze toward the heavens while forming in the heavens. "It is time for me to leave," he said. "Where are you going, Master?" Jiang asked quickly. The old man pointed upward, smiled, but gave no answer. "Do you have any instructions for me?" Jiang asked. "Stop that man. This is your mission and mine as well," the elder replied. "If you succeed, we can meet again above." The words were not explicit, but Jiang understood. If he succeeded, all would be well. If he failed, only death awaited. "I understand. My life belongs to you, Master," Jiang said. "Rest assured, I will strive to fulfill this mission. From this day forth, descend the mountain," the elder sighed. "From now on, the infinite immortal mountain will no longer exist." The sun set in the west, dyeing half the sky crimson. The sea at dusk was breathtakingly beautiful. But deep within, the mountain drifted farther and farther, never to appear again. Only one youth in golden robes stepped out from the heavenly sea. At the same time, within a dense forest, Tangeline carried a massive axe upon her back. Her eyes were like sharp blades, full of cutting brilliance. She wore a flowing white robe embroidered with crimson trim at the sleeves. The high collar looked specially tailored. Now she had grown into a striking young woman, with black hair cascading like a waterfall down to her waist. Her hair long, her skin pale and smooth. Before her stood the fading phantom of an old man. His figure was so faint, a breeze could scatter him. "Jeline, the time of great struggle has begun. Go," the phantom said with a smile. "Master, when will we meet again?" she asked. "When the time is right, we will," the phantom replied, waving his hand before silently dissipating. Jeline lifted her eyes to the world beyond the forest. Finally, carrying her great axe, she stepped forward. On South Goose Mountain of the true martial sacred ground, Su Zimo lay on a recliner, half asleep in leisure. Suddenly, the heavens trembled. The primordial grand Tao that once spanned the sky erupted with five-colored brilliance. Within that brilliance, countless Taos emerged. The ordinary five elements, metal, wood, water, fire, earth, were present. So too were advanced attributes: slaughter, fate, samsara, void, space, time. Light intertwined with darkness, death and samsara sharing the same sky. Time and space reflected one another, while destruction, holiness, curses, and life circled all around. That eternal Tao began to stir, yin and yang retreated, the five elements gave their shelter, and the entire heavens shook. The vast heavens will spun at the center of the sky. At that moment, no matter where one was on the primordial heartlands, whether a newly risen prodigy or an ancient monster sealed away for countless years, everyone could feel that power. It was the condensation of an era, the very place of destiny. "The heavens will has appeared." Someone lifted their head, muttering excitedly. The entire primordial heartlands fell into a short frenzy. The sky was filled with multicolored laws, and all sects recalled their disciples back to their gates, waiting silently for the choice of the heaven's will. Not only the great imperial lineages, but also countless wandering cultivators' disciples looked up at the heavens. Was this not also their chance to defy fate? To ascend as a grand emperor, to establish a lineage of their own, to step into the outer heavens. On the 13 islands of the Eastern Sea, a young man in white gazed levelly at the sea's surface. The calm waters reflected the multicolored sky. His hair was white as snow, his eyes clear as water. He murmured, "When the sea reaches its end, the sky becomes the shore." When the mountain is climbed to its peak, I alone stand as the summit. On the lofty azure peaks, towering into the clouds with boundless void around, two youths sat cross-legged in the mist. Between them was a delicate chessboard. The one in black robes leaned back on the ground, gulping wine noisily from a flask. He threw it aside and shouted with passion, "I wish to stand at the peak of the world. Tell me, who dares contend?" Beside him, another wine flask floated in midair. Beneath it, a violet flame blazed without cause, boiling the wine inside. The blue-robed youth across from him was much more refined. He poured himself a small cup, smiling. "Brother Joie, your spirit is high. With the arrival of the heaven's will, is this not our great era?" said the black-robed youth. "To contend, for the heaven's will, for this grand age, against all the prodigies under heaven, and even against you, brother Wendien." The blue-robed youth burst into laughter. He drank his cup dry and said, "Brew wine, laugh, and discuss the world. Raise the sword against the heavens." In the misty forest, famed as the paradise of beasts, a man in crimson garb, dyed as though with blood, fought deep within, long spear in hand. Behind him lay endless corpses of monstrous beasts, piled thick across the ground. The dense stench of blood filled the forest. Blood dripped from his body, his own, and that of countless beasts. His eyes were ferocious, thick brows raised. His nose hooked like an eagle's beak, several knife scars twisting across his face like writhing dragons. Finally, the spear in his hand erupted with astonishing intent, toppling hundreds of towering ancient trees. The last beast before him was nailed midair by that spear. The man gazed toward the heaven's will and gave a heavy, cold snort. "Bones piled like mountains in my grasp, rivers of blood beneath my spear. 10,000 miles of land drenched in flesh. I slay all beneath heaven, my weapon never sheathed." In a faraway imperial lineage, solemnity filled the air. Led by the sacred lord, an ancient coffin was brought forth. The coffin was crystalline and transparent, with six-sided facets. Under the sunlight, it shone brilliantly. The sacred lord and all elders knelt as the lid of the coffin was slowly opened. The creaking sound grated in the silence. A figure sat up inside. It was a young man, tender-faced, appearing no more than a teenager. He wore a purple dragon robe, as though he had stepped out of the ancient ages themselves. The youth slowly opened his eyes, and in that instant, heaven and earth grew desolate. As if when his eyes opened it was day, and when closed it was night. Sun and moon revolved within his gaze. "Ancestor, the heaven's will has formed. The era has arrived," the sacred lord said respectfully. "How long have I been sealed?" the young man asked. His voice was hoarse, as though unused for countless ages, pressed deep in his throat. "Exactly 9,900 years, the sect master replied. "Exactly one era." The youth stood from the coffin. At that moment, his dragon robe aged before the eye, fading and tattering. The dragon's head dulled. The garment grew ragged, utterly unlike before. "In a moment I ascend to the heavenly path, chasing away stars, dimming the moon," he said calmly. "Oh!" On South Goose Mountain, Su Zimo quietly watched the transformations of the heavens will above the heavens. At times, countless Daos converged together. At times, auspicious beasts poured endlessly from the skies. At times, spring rains drifted into seven-colored rainbows. Golden springs bubbled from the earth. Celestial dew descended from the heavens. The sun and moon shone together, while the four seasons unfolded at once. The alternation of sun and moon divided heaven and earth into black and white. What once took 24 hours now cycled with startling speed. Heaven and earth turned in constant black and white, repeating endlessly. Daos manifested, countless lives reflected, until thunder and lightning split the sky. "The heaven's will is about to gather," someone whispered. The heaven's will was the essence of an era. When it separated from the Tao, myriad omens naturally followed. The sky poured with torrential rain, thunder and lightning filled the heavens. All living beings hid away in terror. The apocalyptic scene moved hearts. Su Zimo stood in his courtyard atop South Goose Mountain, rain cascading outside the pavilion. Su Qingshan walked in with an umbrella, smiling as he looked at him. "You've been waiting a long time. Father, what is your dream?" With the heavens will so near, Su Zimo felt no urgency. "What is it? You want to bear the heavens' will to fulfill it for me?" Su Qingshan smiled in reply. Su Zimo was silent for a long time, then suddenly asked, "Would you and Mother come with me to the outer heavens?" At these words, silence fell completely. Father and son locked gazes. Rain fell, thunder roared. If Su Qingshan chose not to go, Su Zimo would understand. But then, when would they meet again? Who could say in what distant age? To go to the outer heavens and try to return would be almost impossible. And Su Zimo had the feeling that even surviving the journey would be uncertain. "Why speak so heavily when we've not yet reached parting?" Su Qingshan chuckled. "You haven't answered me," Su Zimo said. "What would we do in the outer heavens?" Su Qingshan asked in return. "To see you? Even here on the primordial heartlands you already return but once in years. If you went to the outer heavens, then even under the same sky we would hardly meet many times. The fledgling eagle, once grown, always longs for higher and broader skies, not to remain forever by its parent's side. Your mother and I both understand this truth. Whether you go to the outer heavens or stay here on primordial heartlands, what difference does it make?" Su Qingshan said with a smile. "As for venturing to that wider world, your father's dream of becoming a mighty cultivator has long since faded. When I agreed to take up the position of Vice Lord of the true martial sacred ground, I had already given it up, otherwise I would never have accepted. Your mother and I have only one greatest wish, that you may live safely. When you were young, no matter what mistakes you made, I could shoulder them and resolve them for you. But now, when I want to say that I will always stand behind you, I realize that this tree of yours has already grown to reach the heavens, even taller than me, your father. If you cannot resolve it yourself, what use would your mother and I be?" Su Qingshan had always been terse, not skilled with words, and father and son rarely exchanged many. But this time was an exception. He rambled on for a long while. "When you head to the outer heavens, I will resign from this Vice Lord's position. I will accompany your mother to travel and wander. The vast mountains and rivers of this primordial heartlands should be admired, and then we will find a secluded paradise to retire to. If in the future you have the chance, come back to visit. And if you don't have time—" At this point Su Qingshan paused slightly, then smiled. "Then let me gift you a poem. Youthful chivalry, befriending heroes of 5 cities. Hearts open wide, hair bristling in passion. In the span of a talk, sharing life and death. Promise as heavy as gold. To push forward courageously, pride unrestrained. Bind yourself to the seeds of heaven's pride, sword howling in the western wind. Regret not climbing mountains and crossing waters, fingers strumming 7 strings, eyes seeing off the returning swan. This poem is like my whole life. In youth, I once looked ahead with lofty ambitions. Yet in the end, all that remained was regret. Since you have already reached this step, you should stride forward with pride, and your future will surely shine bright and promising, my son." Hearing Su Qingshan's long, heartfelt words, Su Zimo fell into silence. Though it was not yet the time of farewell, in his heart he already felt some unwillingness to part. "Oh right, I nearly forgot the real matter." Su Qingshan smiled. "I came to tell you some news." "What is it?" Su Zimo raised his head to ask. "According to information our sect has received, with heavens will now manifest, many forces seem to have secretly reached certain agreements. You must be cautious when the time comes. They still dare to unite?" Su Zimo sneered coldly. "It's hard to say. Our true martial sacred ground is at its peak of influence right now, and with heavens will awakening, open wars between sects are no longer possible." Su Qingshan continued, "But you must understand, the struggle for heaven's will is not the same. I fear that when the time comes, they may indeed unite, and neither the sect nor anyone else will be able to help you. A mere rabble, Su Zimo said flatly. If they're not afraid of death, let them come. Regardless, keep your guard up, don't let danger strike at a critical moment, Su Qingshan reminded him. Su Zimo nodded slightly. Then I'll leave you to your quiet. I'll go and probe for more information, Su Qingshan said. Holding his oil paper umbrella, his tall and resolute figure slowly disappeared into the torrential rain. Su Zimo closed his eyes and stood quietly for a long while. Then suddenly he opened them again and walked straight out of the pavilion. He came to the mountainside of South Goose Mountain. The downpour was still falling, but the thunder and lightning above were gradually weakening. The endless heavenly Tao was being stripped away, turning into a golden radiance, disappearing into the skies. Then, as the rain cleared and the sky turned blue again, a painting appeared across the heavens. It was a projection of the heavenly Tao, displayed on the firmament, covering the entire sky for all in primordial heartlands to see. The location of the heavens will struggle has appeared, someone cried out. In every era, the battlefield for heaven's will was never fixed. Sometimes it was in the endless sea, sometimes in the land of 5 elements, sometimes in the dark forest. The location was always random. Once revealed, all chosen had to travel there, or else they would forfeit their qualification. As the projection unfolded, silver meteors began raining down from the heavens. The meteor shower was so dense that one could not see the end of it, surely numbering in the tens of thousands. The meteors shot downward, scattering across all of primordial heartlands. Su Zimo raised his head, only to see one meteor shoot straight toward him, merging directly into his forehead. At once, a strange power surged through his body, his forehead shimmering with ripples. A hexagram pattern appeared. This was the mark of being chosen by the heavens' will. Only those chosen by the heavens' will had the right to contend for it. Anyone else who dared interfere would be destroyed directly by the heavenly Tao. This was what Su Qingshan had mentioned earlier. Once the battle for heaven's will began, neither the true martial sacred ground nor even the God Emperor could assist him. Some of the holy sons of imperial lineages were sure to band together. Su Zimo touched the mark on his forehead, but felt nothing unusual. It seemed like an ordinary pattern. At this moment, the entire primordial heartlands was shrouded by silver meteors. They could not be seized, they could only choose. Some rejoiced at being chosen, others grieved at being passed over. Most of those chosen were of the younger generation. Brother Zimo, I was chosen. Lin Ruhu's booming laughter came from afar. He came running over, overjoyed. On his forehead gleamed the same pattern as Su Zimo's. Is it worth being this happy? Su Zimo asked with a smile. Of course. Being chosen, whether or not I seize the heaven's will, it's at least recognition. Lin Ruhu said. It was, after all, a measure of pride among heaven's chosen. There's nothing rare about it. In past struggles for the heaven's will, tens of thousands were always chosen, Su Zimo replied. Brother Zimo, the Sacred Lord asked me to inquire, do you want to form an alliance? Lin Ruhu asked. An alliance? Su Zimo shook his head with a faint smile. Alliances in the heavens will struggle were not unusual. Most forces would band together to avoid being eliminated too early, first wiping out others, then turning on each other later. Such alliances were rife with schemes and betrayal. I don't need one, Su Zimo replied. The heaven's will of this era is already mine. Though his voice was calm, the certainty and strength in his tone carried overwhelming conviction. Then I'll report that truthfully to the Sacred Lord, Lin Ruhu said. Do you know where that is? Su Zimo asked, pointing to the image in the heavens. Skytrap Island, also called Boundless, one of the 10 forbidden grounds. Lin Ruhu answered gravely with a nod. In past eras, the heavens will battlefield varied, but it had never before fallen upon such a perilous place. To fight for the heavens' will in a forbidden ground, before even facing rivals, the land itself would be enough to kill you many times over. Su Zimo nodded and said, I'm afraid before the struggle for heavens will even begins, Just the location itself will be enough to scare off a large number of people. They're nothing but the weak. True powers never feel fear or retreat because of this, Lin Ruhu replied. You plan to fight for heaven's will? Su Zimo looked at him and asked. Heaven's will is naturally yours. Of course, I'll go to help you, Lin Ruhu said. If you want to fight for heaven's will, I'll respect your choice. But if you don't, then stay in true martial sacred ground. You're not allowed to go, Su Zimo said. Hearing this, Lin Ruhu froze, then hurriedly asked, Why? A forbidden ground like the Skytrap Island, even I have no absolute confidence. If you go, I can't guarantee your safety, Su Zimo replied. You think I'm someone afraid of death? Lin Ruhu asked. The meaning is different. Your grandfather only has you as a grandson, and you're one of the very few friends I have. If in the future, when you go to the outer heavens, you want to walk your own path, even at the cost of your life, I won't stop you. But this struggle for heaven's will, in this era, is mine to bear. I don't want that place to become your burial ground. If you fight for heaven's will yourself, I won't stop you. But if you're only going to help me or to prove something to yourself, then there's no need. It's meaningless, Su Zimo said bluntly. As one of the 10 forbidden grounds, the Skytrap Island was a place where even survival was uncertain. And he had a premonition that it would be a blood-soaked battlefield. Lin Ruhu's strength was good, but anyone chosen for the struggle of heaven's will was no weaker than another. This was his road. Su Zimo wanted to walk it alone. I understand, Lin Ruhu said quietly, disappointed. If you want me to go, I'll go. If not, then I won't. Watching Lin Ruhu's back as he left, Su Zimo sighed. In the end, his gaze softened. Perhaps it was also because of his looming separation from his parents. He had few friends other than Lin Ruhu and Little Gue, almost no one. Naturally, he didn't want them harmed. He feared in the future it would be hard to meet true friends again. At times, he even felt he didn't need friends at all. Oh, the Skytrap Island, also called Boundless. It lay above the Boundless Sea. The Boundless Sea was the border of the endless heavenly sea, a vast body of water nearly equal to the endless ocean itself. It was located in the northwest of the eastern continent. The next morning, all disciples and elders of true martial sacred ground gathered together. From South Goose Mountain to the main gates of the sect, people filled the way. In the long crowd, a tree-lined path stretched. Several great drums were placed at the front. Someone picked up red drumsticks and struck them hard. Boom, boom, boom. The resounding noise shook the air. When Su Zimo, carrying Shadow Tyrant, walked down from South Goose Mountain, all eyes turned to him. We pray for the Holy Sun's victorious return. We pray for the Holy Sun's victorious return. The voices surged like waves, one after another, rising together with the pounding drums. Su Zimo was not only representing himself but also true martial sacred ground. In the struggle for heaven's will, there would be only two outcomes. One victor and countless losers. Other than Grand Emperors, few survived. Especially now, when the battleground was Skytrap Island. Turning back, Su Zimo smiled at the crowd. Little Gue and Lin Ruhu were already waiting in front. A giant fiery bird stood before them, a hybrid of the blazing cloud sparrow and the sky-piercing eagle. It was the fastest beast of true martial sacred ground. According to the rules of heaven's will, once the location of the Skytrap Island was revealed, all chosen ones had 10 days to reach it. After 10 days, the island would close. Those who hadn't arrived would lose their qualification. You too? Su Zimo asked, looking at Lin Ruhu and Little Gue. We've been ordered to escort you to the island, Lin Ruhu said with a smile. Don't worry, we won't enter. Just send you there. Su Zimo nodded lightly and stepped onto the bird's back. Behind them, the drums beat faster. With a sharp cry, the fiery bird spread its wings and soared. In an instant, it became a red, vanishing into the sky, carrying everyone's hopes and blessings. Similar scenes unfolded across countless sects. For many, heaven's will was a goal of cultivation. Perhaps not the ultimate goal, but certainly one of the most coveted. Oh! The fiery bird flew so fast it was as if it pierced time and space itself. The fastest beast of true martial sacred ground. The airflow swept past. Clouds seemed within reach. With calm expression, Suzimo looked down as different thoughts stirred in his companions. Why am I more nervous than you at a time like this? Lin Ruhu laughed. Suzimo smiled faintly. He removed Shadow Tyrant from his back, sat cross-legged, placing the blade on his lap. The fiery bird's speed exceeded expectations. In just 3 days they reached the boundless sea. At that moment, the blade on his lap trembled, releasing a restrained yet powerful intent. Suzimo slowly opened his eyes and murmured, "We're here." From above, the boundless sea looked different from the endless heavenly sea. No trace of blue water, only frothing, sickly white waves that churned like vomit. Ahead stretched a heavenly path, a road that existed atop the ocean itself. "Go back," Suzimo said to Lin Ruhu and Little Gue. "We'll wait for you here," Lin Ruhu answered. "For the moment you claim the heaven's will and return as the Grand Emperor." Suzimo didn't argue. He stepped down from the bird, landing on the heavenly path. Before his feet touched the ground, a sword light shot out, brimming with killing intent. Suzimo flipped backward in the air, dodging the strike. Landing steadily, he looked forward. Not far away stood a young man in black robes. The robe covered his figure entirely, even his head hidden beneath a hood. His long hair fell over his forehead, nearly obscuring his eyes. "Who are you?" Suzimo asked. "The moment you step onto this place, there are no names, only life and death," the black-robed youth said coldly. "I stand, you fall." Suzimo chuckled. Spirit force surged madly in his hand as he struck with overwhelming force. The black-robed youth retreated swiftly, swinging his long sword to dissolve Suzimo's palm strike. Then, with a swift turn, he unleashed a sword intent that split the sky. Although the sword intent had already slashed down, the black-robed youth didn't expect Suzimo's movements to be so much faster. In almost an instant, Suzimo appeared behind him. Black spirit force erupted in his palm, crashing down toward the black-robed youth's head. "What?" The black-robed youth was startled by the sudden strike. But he no longer had any chance to dodge. With a loud boom, Suzimo's palm landed without the slightest restraint, directly sending him flying. The black-robed youth's body crashed to the edge of the boundless sea. To stop his momentum, he stabbed his sword into the ground, leaving behind a deep, glaring scar. He quickly steadied himself but noticed that Suzimo wasn't pressing forward with another attack. Instead, Suzimo stood there with a faint smile, watching him. "Who are you?" the black-robed youth asked. "Didn't you say names don't matter?" Suzimo replied with a grin. "I want to know now," the black-robed youth retorted. "And who do you think you are?" Suzimo shot back. "I intend to take a look around this Skytrap island. Don't get in my way. You should be grateful I hold no killing intent." Suzimo turned his gaze around. At this moment, he stood upon a straight heavenly road. He was at one end of the road, while the other end led to a towering gate that seemed to pierce the clouds. The gate was made of some unknown material, thousands of meters high and tens of thousands wide, stretching endlessly across the winding sea, beyond the reach of sight. By now, more and more people were descending around the area. Countless ships could also be seen approaching from afar, sailing across the boundless sea. It was unnecessary to look closely. The struggle for heavens will allow 10 days for all contenders. Suzimo had taken only 3, leaving him ample time to explore. People walked across the void, each one exuding a mighty and unfathomable aura, representatives of their respective powers. Few dared to provoke others. Everyone kept their guard high. They all walked along the heavenly road toward the great gate ahead. Suzimo walked at the front. To his mild surprise, the black-robed youth silently followed behind him. Suzimo gave him a glance but did not stop him. When he reached the great gate, he realized it was illusory, like a wall of air. His finger slipped through it easily, showing that he could pass inside. This leads to the uninhabited zone of the Skytrap Island, the black-robed youth explained. You'd best be careful. That's not just a simple wall of air. No sooner had he spoken than the gate rippled. A mysterious force surged forth from all directions, as if to swallow Su Zimo whole. Su Zimo quickly pulled his hand back. But the devouring force refused to let him go so easily. On the surface of the gate, a monstrous head condensed, jaws gaping wide as it lunged at him. With a resounding bang, Su Zimo smashed it apart with one punch, blood splattering across the ground. By then, more people had arrived at the gate. Clearly, they had come prepared, far more knowledgeable about it than Su Zimo. One man summoned a flood of blue spirit force. With his index finger, he drew an oval-shaped pattern across the surface of the gate. When the pattern formed, a small doorway appeared, and he instantly slipped inside. The gate then returned to its original state. Another figure shrouded himself in flowing water, a shimmering stream enveloping his body, and simply walked straight through the gate. The black-robed youth quickly explained, "The outer gate of the Skytrap Island is formed by the power of the boundless sea. Only water-type power can pass through it. Do you have a water-type treasure? Or perhaps a water-based cultivation technique?" Seeing Su Zimo remain silent, the youth took 2 pills from his pouch. "If you trust me, swallow this," he said, tossing one to Su Zimo. "This is a freshwater pearl. I prepared them in advance." Without hesitation, Su Zimo swallowed the pearl. At once, a surge of water energy spread through him, flowing into his limbs and bones, suffusing his whole body. When he touched the gate again, it truly felt like nothing more than a wall of air. "Look, it's young Lord Bai Dao of Martial Spirit Creek. And over there, Senior Brother Suchin from Holy Cloud Temple. The 18 swords of the Sword Dance Temple are all here? Are they planning to fight among themselves?" Fight? Hardly. Most likely they formed a small alliance to clear the way. Even the Dark Lord of the Radiant Realm came. That madman is here too. So it was in every era's struggle for heaven's will. Across the vast heavens, the Tao itself projected an image, revealing the scenes within the Skytrap Island. From east, west, north, south, above or below, wherever one looked, the same image appeared. This was the battle for heaven's will. All of the primordial heartlands could witness it directly. Sadly, though, every year the contest for heavens will depended solely on one's own strength. Intrigue and schemes rarely held any weight here. This struggle for heavens will truly is a grand event. Just look, these prodigies, unseen for centuries, even millennia, are all gathered. Indeed, many of these names we've only heard in legend, never seen in person, yet here they all are, assembled. Prodigies everywhere. But what a pity! The struggle for heavens will always claims far too many of them. After such a grand era, decline inevitably follows. That is the natural order. Only when one flourishing age ends can a new one arise. Across the continent, people buzzed with heated discussion. During this period of the heavens will struggle, almost nothing else mattered. Everyone fixed their eyes on the heavens, waiting to see who would become the master of this era. When Su Zimo stepped through the gate, the world before him completely transformed. He now stood in a round heaven and earth. Beneath his feet stretched a narrow path, so narrow it could hold only a single person. Directly ahead lay an oval-shaped island. It resembled a spinning top, round above, sharply pointed below. Suspended in midair without any foundation, it floated in the void. The island rotated slowly, jagged rocks jutting out, while lush plants and trees grew across its surface. The path Su Zimo stood upon led straight toward the island's lowest point. Between the gate and the island stretched a great distance. Other than the narrow path, all else was void. Here, flight was forbidden, even an emperor could not walk the skies. This was what made the Skytrap Island one of the 10 forbidden grounds. With flight stripped away, one could only ascend step by step from the very bottom. And most terrifying of all, the Skytrap Island was surrounded entirely by the Dead Sea. This Dead Sea was unlike any ordinary one. Not only could nothing float upon its surface, anything that touched it was instantly consumed. Like sulfuric acid, it could dissolve even bones within seconds. "Hey, you in front. If you're not moving, then get out of the way. Don't block the path," someone shouted from behind. Because Su Zimo stood on the narrow path, which could only hold one person, everyone behind him was stuck. Su Zimo glanced back at the speaker, then quickened his pace toward the bottom of the Skytrap Island. As he reached it, he stomped heavily with his right foot. The narrow path beneath them instantly shattered. "You brat! You're courting death!" someone roared in fury behind him. Su Zimo just chuckled lightly and ignored them. But clearly the others had their own methods. Though flight was forbidden here, other approaches were not. One man's long sword expanded to tens of thousands of meters, forming a bridge between the broken path and the Skytrap Island. He stepped across the giant sword with ease. A woman unfastened her silk ribbon, which extended for miles, and gracefully crossed it like a descending celestial maiden. Many others used their own means to cross. After arriving, they gave Su Zimo a glance but quickly looked away. After all, the struggle for heavens hadn't officially begun. To fight now would only let others reap the benefits. But not everyone was so rational. 3 men suddenly surrounded Su Zimo, staring at him with predatory eyes. "Boy, so eager to die?" The one on the left sneered. "It's the 3 sons of Green Citadel," someone whispered after recognizing them. "The 3 sons of Green Citadel?" Another scoffed with disdain. "Those scum dare to compete for heaven's will? Rumor has it they're demonic cultivators. They love slaughter and plunder. Bullying the weak is one thing, but to enter the struggle for heaven's will." People around them murmured, watching closely. Su Zimo simply raised his head and gave the 3 a single glance. "Noisy." His voice was calm and dismissive. His right hand suddenly reached out, gathering the winds and clouds of the world in his palm. The force shocked the 3, far beyond what they had expected. "A tough one," the eldest of the 3 muttered nervously. But before they could react, they were horrified to discover their bodies completely immobilized under Su Zimo's suppression. "How is this possible?" the eldest cried out in disbelief. The next moment, the 3 of them were blasted away, crashing into the Dead Sea below. In an instant, their bodies dissolved, bones and all vanishing without a trace. The surrounding crowd looked at each other in shock. The 3 sons of Green Citadel weren't the strongest, but they weren't weak enough to be crushed so easily either. "Who is that?" someone asked. "You don't even recognize the holy son of the true martial sacred ground? And you dare enter the struggle for heaven's will?" Another mocked. Ever since Su Zimo had caused great uproars, his name had spread far and wide. Every sect had warned their disciples about him. "No wonder," someone muttered in realization. That was why many who knew his identity chose not to act. "So you're Su Zimo?" the black-robed youth from earlier grinned. "Want to team up with me?" Seeing Su Zimo remain silent, he introduced himself. "I am Jian Yushang from Morningstar Tower. Surely you've heard my name." "No." Su Zimo shook his head slightly. "Then at least Morningstar Tower?" the youth pressed. Su Zimo shook his head again. He looked up and saw that many others had already formed alliances. These were clearly prearranged. Even rogue cultivators gathered together for strength in numbers. "Care to reconsider?" the black-robed youth asked again, unwilling to give up. But Su Zimo ignored him, observing his surroundings instead. Everyone had gathered beneath the Skytrap Island. Until the struggle for heaven's will began, no one could ascend. Some sat cross-legged to meditate. Others chatted quietly in small groups. The scene was strangely peaceful. It was the struggle for heaven's will, the most brutal of contests. Yet for now it looked almost harmonious. Time ticked away. A few minor clashes broke out, but nothing more. When dawn of the 10th day arrived, the heavens finally stirred. The once empty void lit up with dazzling golden light. The heavens will itself appeared like a vast galaxy, draping across the sky. It shimmered with countless das, radiant and dazzling. As the heavens will appeared, the Skytrap Island, once rotating slowly like a top, suddenly spun rapidly, with such speed it shook the heart. Without a firm grip, one would be flung away and fall into the Dead Sea, never to be seen again. "Brothers, let us climb the Skytrap Island together," someone laughed loudly, leaping forward. Though the island's rotation was intense, everyone present adapted. Even at a slower pace, as long as they reached the summit, it was enough. Zimo stepped into the void, locked onto a protruding boulder, and leapt up to grab it. At once, his whole body was caught in the rotation, spinning along with the island. "Die!" A furious shout rang out beside him. Several figures suddenly attacked from all directions. Zimo didn't recognize them, but only chuckled. So it was premeditated. With Shadow Tyrant circling his body, he clung to the boulder with one hand, wielding the weapon with the other as he fought back. "Everyone, let's drive this one out first. If he stays, none of us will have peace," someone shouted. Many nodded. Zimo's presence clearly stirred unease. "You can all come at once," Zimo said calmly. He made no move to climb further, choosing instead to stand on the mountainside, gazing down coldly at the crowd. He seized one attacker by the neck and snapped it instantly, blood dripping from his hands as he stared at the others. In the struggle for heaven's will, he would not retreat, not a single step. From the very beginning, his plan was to ascend by stepping over everyone else. "Use numbers against him," someone cried. In moments, 30 to 40 cultivators surrounded Zimo. They showed no arrogance. Each treated him as the gravest threat. True fates manifested one after another, painting the island in a storm of colors, strange visions erupting all at once. The outside world watched the spectacle with rapt attention. The holy son of true martial is truly terrifying. But surrounded like this, he's in real danger. He doesn't know how to hide his strength. Before the struggle begins in earnest, most keep a low profile to avoid becoming a target too soon. As they argued, Zimo was already fighting dozens at once. He held nothing back. His speed was such that even his shadow was hard to follow. Though all of them were so-called prodigies, the gap was staggering. He seized two by the throats and smashed their skulls into the island's side. Their heads embedded into the rocky mountainside as their bodies spun with the island's violent rotation. Seeing this scene, the others' eyes trembled with fear. "Everyone, attack together. There's no way back now," someone shouted through gritted teeth. At this point, surrender was impossible. In an instant, countless divine techniques erupted with overwhelming force. All their attacks poured down on Zimo at once. Supreme Yin-Yang Sword, Vermilion Bird 9 transformations, Demonizing Finger, Creation of Yellow Springs, Imperial Dragon Burial. A torrent of techniques filled the sky. Zimo lifted his head, watching the storm of attacks raining down on him. The corner of his lips curled into a faint smile. Even as he was swallowed whole by their combined strikes, no one relaxed. They stared fixedly at that spot. Explosions roared across the mountainside, bursting like fireworks along with the island's rapid spin. When the dust finally settled, Zimo's figure was nowhere to be seen. "Where did he go?" someone shouted in alarm, eyes darting around. "Above!" a trembling voice cried out. Everyone instantly felt something wrong. A terrifying power was condensing above their heads. Looking up, they saw Zimo hanging in midair, one hand gripping a massive boulder. In his other hand, a formidable all-devouring power gathered in his palm. One of the 10 primordial God scriptures, creation-devouring God scripture, Zimo said with a grin. Golden radiance like molten glaze flowed over his 5 fingers. Each fingertip pulsed with devouring force. In front of every finger spun a black vortex of annihilation, like miniature black holes, enlarging until they hung above the void. Power of creation overflowed from his hand, while the devouring whirlpools surfaced on his skin. Each finger became a vortex of creation, swallowing heaven itself. As his right hand descended, torrents of violent energy surged forth like cyclones, sweeping across the heavens. The world before their eyes vanished, replaced by 5 colossal black holes descending from above. "Dodge!" someone screamed. "How?" Another cried helplessly. Above were black holes. Below was the Dead Sea. "Fight him. We're all chosen ones too. We're not necessarily weaker than him," someone roared in desperation. The black holes fell. Though massive, their speed was lightning fast. Like streaks of darkness flashing by, in just an instant, dozens of cultivators around Suzimo were wiped out, more than half erased. Suzimo's body flickered through the void like lightning. Even the remnants of space could barely track him. Among the survivors, he appeared behind one youth, gripping his shoulders. With sheer brute force, Suzimo tore him apart, like ripping bread. As the body split, a streak of soul light fled into the distance. "Trying to escape with your soul?" Suzimo chuckled, slamming his palm forward. The soul shattered instantly into nothingness. The remaining cultivators turned pale. "Holy Sun Su, we can form an alliance. We weren't truly trying to oppose you." 5 or 6 of them, all trembling, begged for mercy. The struggle for heaven's will hadn't even begun yet. To fall here would be the greatest loss imaginable. "What's the point of allying with useless trash like you?" Suzimo sneered. "You want to live?" They all nodded frantically. "Then climb," Suzimo said with a laugh. "Climb to the summit of this island, and I'll spare your lives. Run for your lives." They hesitated only a moment before dashing upward with all their strength. But just as they turned their backs, several spirit blades crashed down, instantly grinding their bodies into powder, flesh and bone annihilated together. "You believed that?" Suzimo shook his head with a mocking laugh. "It seems this world of schemes and betrayal has taught you nothing. All dead, not a single survivor. So that really is the holy son of the true martial sacred ground. No wonder people have been saying, he's the one destined for heaven's will. So many couldn't stand against him. The hunters became the hunted. But that's what makes this struggle worth watching." All around, spectators whispered. The sects who lost their holy sons burned with fury, at Suzimo, but also at their own fallen heirs. The true struggle for heaven's will hadn't even begun, and most were trying to preserve themselves, to survive until the end. Yet their sons had gone and challenged the strongest man there. Suzimo stood midway up the spinning island. His earlier battle had cost him precious time, leaving him far behind the main group. He needed to catch up quickly. Though flight was forbidden, his speed remained formidable. Using jutting rocks as footholds, each step carried him 100 meters upward. But as he neared the island's upper reaches, Suzimo and the others ran into unexpected trouble. Above the Skytrap Island, aside from the radiant threads of heavens while hanging down, a gaping rift in space had opened. From it crawled swarms of void parasites, descending to attack those climbing near the peak. Dense beyond counting, their numbers filled the air. Their power was terrifying. If they drew even a drop of blood, they could instantly burrow into the victim's body, devouring every organ from within. "Does anyone here actually know something about the Skytrap Island?" someone shouted, forced to halt in the face of the swarm. "I know a little," replied a monk in gray robes, Suchin of Holy Cloud Temple. All eyes turned to him. Everyone knew something of the Skytrap Island, but few understood it deeply. After all, who would willingly come study one of the 10 forbidden grounds? "There are some old rumors you must have heard," Suchin said. "They say a great battle once broke out on this island." "I've heard that. Supposedly, the Skytrap Island was once one of the pillars of heaven, holding up the very foundation of the primordial heartlands," another interjected. "Then some unknown beings came, seeking to destroy it. Grand Emperor Fei Yu led the defense, fought them back, and returned victorious." "That's just the broad version," Suchin corrected. "The truth is, the ones who sought to destroy the primordial heartlands weren't from this land at all. They came from other worlds. And Grand Emperor Fei Yu didn't slay them. He merely repelled them. Other worlds. The crowd froze in shock, though they quickly accepted it. With their knowledge, the existence of other worlds wasn't hard to believe. Then why would outsiders come to the primordial heartlands? Someone asked. How should I know? Suchin chuckled. Go ask them yourself. Wait! Someone suddenly screamed in alarm. Since these void parasites are appearing now, doesn't that mean? The young man didn't finish his words, but everyone around him shuddered. It meant that those beings were about to return. I've been wondering why this time's heavens will had to be placed on Skytrap Island, said young master by Tao of Martial Spirit Creek in a cold tone. In the past, the sight of the heavens will struggle was never this dangerous. You mean to say... Someone pointed upward, though without making it explicit. Watching from the side, Su Zimo found it amusing. These connections he had already pieced together. Heaven wanted to wield everyone as a blade. Using the pretext of heaven's will, it drove them, him included, to exterminate these alien intruders. Eliminate threats to the primordial heartlands and crown the heavens will bearer at the same time. 2 birds with 1 stone. Such was the way of heaven. With a casual move, it toyed with all beings like monkeys, no matter if they were imperial sects or holy clans. And even if everyone knew, they still had to jump into this fire pit. Because the temptation of the heavens' will was too great. So what do we do now? People looked at each other. Even those uninterested before were now focused. I propose that, in the current situation, we should unite and stop fighting amongst ourselves, suggested young master Bai Dao. Once the enemy is killed, then we fight each other for the prize. How about that? I agree, said the Dark Lord of the Radiant Realm right after. Otherwise, we'll end up with nothing. Holy Sun Su, what do you think? Someone approached Su Zimo and asked softly. The man wore a purple robe, his eyes bright like torches. His white hair flowed like snow down his back. At his waist hung a jade flute, his bearing refined, his smile warm as spring breeze. This was Primordius, the holy son of the supreme primal sacred ground. As an old imperial lineage from the eastern continent, Su Zimo had little contact with supreme primal sacred ground, much less with its holy son. He hadn't expected Primordius to be the one to ask him first. You all can decide for yourselves. I'm just here to watch the show. Su Zimo waved casually. Holy Sun Su is the strongest among us. If you have any advice, speak freely, said Lei Yen of Thunder Mound, his voice booming like thunder. Though none liked to admit it, they all knew Su Zimo's strength. You want advice? Su Zimo replied with a smirk. I think you're excellent. The task of charging at the front later, let's leave it to you. You! Lei Yen glared furiously, then snorted coldly and ignored him. Everyone, enough quarreling, said Monk Suchin, playing the mediator's role. He glanced upward at Skytrap Island. Those void parasites don't seem to dare come down. As long as we don't approach, they won't attack. I think they must be guarding something. Then let's rush up together, said the Dark Lord. Charging aimlessly won't help. We should focus our strength on a single point, tear open a path. That way, we'll have better chances and fewer losses, Monk Suchin suggested. Then what are we waiting for? Move! Lunatic Chin of Zither Tower roared impatiently. After a brief discussion, the group began their assault upward toward the island. Su Zimo wasn't in a hurry. His eyes swept around, first to the floating island above, then to the Dead Sea below. Something stirred in his thoughts. Blending into the crowd, he slipped quietly away until he reached the edge of the island, beside the Dead Sea. The sea lay utterly still. No ripples, no waves, ancient and calm. Su Zimo smiled faintly. The next moment, spirit force surged around him, and he leapt directly into the Dead Sea. Often, the least expected place was the safest. Su Zimo was gambling. The Dead Sea was still the Dead Sea. That overwhelming corrosive force tried to melt his body into rot water. But Su Zimo carried the tree of life. No matter how the sea corroded, vitality flowed endlessly, countering it. Inside the Dead Sea all was darkness. A vast, oppressive darkness. Holding his breath, Su Zimo swam downward. Half an hour passed. In such gloomy, sealed surroundings, agitation easily grew in one's heart. Even Su Zimo nearly gave up, thinking he had guessed wrong. But suddenly, faint light flickered ahead. He frowned and swam faster. Soon, he reached the seabed, where thick, dense watergrasses grew, covering something hidden beneath. The dim glow seeped out from under them. As he moved closer to probe, the grasses lashed out first, coiling around his legs, trying to drag him under. Shadow Tyrant behind him unsheathed itself. Boundless blade force poured down, shredding the weeds instantly. What appeared before him was a road of bones, an avenue paved entirely with skeletons, stretching into the distance toward what seemed to be a palace. But visibility was poor in the Dead Sea, and Su Zimo could not see far. He landed on the bone-paved path. Along its edges, petrified tentacles sprouted, frozen mid-motion. Studying them closely, Su Zimo sensed a strange, wondrous power within. "What are these things?" he muttered. Still, he walked on. Oddly enough, the path was silent, no obstacles barring his way. Unhindered, he arrived before the great hall. Now he saw it clearly. The hall was shaped in the likeness of a monstrous creature. Its form was hard to describe, like a spider, but instead of legs, countless tentacles stretched below, too many to count. Its face was twisted and vicious, though partly hidden by more tentacles. Its body surface, however, would horrify anyone with trypophobia, covered in countless spots, glowing like molten magma. And the hall's entrance was none other than the creature's gaping maw. Inside all was pitch black. Nothing could be seen. Su Zimo walked straight in. The moment he crossed the threshold, the ground trembled. "Ignorant human, how dare you step my domain?" A voice thundered louder than thunder itself. The Dead Sea, once calm, now surged with waves. On the Bone Avenue, the petrified tentacles writhed back to life, thrashing like a scene of demonic revelry. Su Zimo felt a massive power burst forth. He had barely entered the hall before he was blasted out. The monstrous palace he had seen was awakening. The momentum was overwhelming, shaking the entire bone-paved avenue. That monster's eyes, bright and terrifying as sun and moon, stared directly at Su Zimo. All around, countless petrified tentacles began to cluster densely in the air. The Dead Sea churned into chaos. "Kneel," the monster commanded faintly, with an unquestionable tone. "With just you." Su Zimo chuckled softly. "If you beg for mercy now, the great Alphen may still consider sparing your life." The monster gazed down with crushing oppression. "Alphen," Su Zimo replied. "So you're that creature from another world? Courting death. How dare you call me by name?" The monster roared furiously. Immediately, countless tentacles surged forward, blotting out the sky. "Nothing but bluff," Su Zimo sneered. In his hand, Shadow Tyrant released a radiance of sword intent, which spread in all directions, forming a protective field. Any tentacle approaching him was instantly shattered. "Go on. Let's see how many tricks you have left." Su Zimo laughed as he walked toward the monster. This monster clearly had concerns. Su Zimo didn't know what exactly it feared. If it were truly strong enough, it wouldn't need to hide at the bottom of the Dead Sea, using void parasites to draw everyone's attention to Skytrap Island above. Were it him, he would do the same. The Skytrap Island was where everyone vied for heaven's will. He would not stay there, unless he was invincible. The monster looked imposing, but beyond those tentacles, it had little to show. Bluff upon bluff. Su Zimo soared upward in a blaze of sword intent, the tentacles unable to touch him. Only as he drew closer did the monster seem to panic. "Human, leave now, and I can overlook your offense," the monster said. "What's inside the palace?" Su Zimo countered. He could tell the voice and power weren't from the monster itself, but from inside the palace. After all, this creature was nothing but a palace given form. "Human, take one more step and you will surely die," the monster roared again. Suzimo ignored it and rushed forward toward the hall. Though he disdained the schemes of heaven, he understood this much. Heaven wouldn't gather everyone here just to throw them into a death trap. Otherwise, what of this era's heaven's will? The world, too, needed growth. Watching Suzimo's advance, the monster grew more frenzied. Its countless tentacles no longer tried to kill him, only to block his way. But Shadow Tyrant in Suzimo's grip cut apart all obstacles, until he finally stood before the Great Hall. Human, think carefully. Step inside and you'll regret it, the monster said evenly, as if it already knew its fate. Suzimo answered calmly, I've never once regretted a step I took, and he strode straight into the pitch-black hall. Shadow Tyrant in his hand blazed with dazzling light, illuminating the scene within. The space wasn't very large. Tentacles covered all the walls. Only in the very front stood a massive egg-like object, enough to terrify anyone with trypophobia. Its whole body was pale yellow, smooth like cream, covered with a glossy membrane. A slit ran down its middle, beating like a heart with an audible thump-thump-thump. From within surged a life force so vast that Suzimo was startled. It was second only to the tree of life itself. Boy, you chose to enter. The being inside the egg spoke. Bear the consequences yourself. What consequences? Suzimo smiled. And what exactly are you? I've never seen your like. The egg shielded its inhabitant, and Suzimo could not see through. I am called Alphen, not something. I am of the great cosmic insect race. The voice answered calmly. Where do you come from? Suzimo asked. Do you have companions? The other seemed unwilling to answer, retreating into silence within the egg. No answer, eh? Suzimo chuckled. He raised Shadow Tyrant high. Its aura rolled like mountains collapsing as he slashed downward. With a resounding bang, what appeared fragile proved solid as bedrock. The egg remained unshaken. Don't waste your strength. With your power, you cannot break my defenses, the voice said indifferently. Even bearing heavens will make no difference. I happen to enjoy challenges. Suzimo smiled. The 19 forms of Dao-seeking gathered on Shadow Tyrant, the power of creation flooding the hall. Suzimo swung. A stroke of light ripped through darkness, tearing the void apart. Even the great hall split in two beneath the slash. Yet upon striking the egg, only dull thuds sounded, leaving it pristine. Aryan swastika God seal, creation-devouring God hand. Suzimo cried, refusing to relent. His left hand gathered the devouring force of the heavens, 5 fingers forming a vast black hole. In his right palm, the Aryan swastika God seal spun. When these divine laws were unleashed, the long-still dead sea erupted in titanic waves. The entire sea turned upside down, as though it could not withstand the pressure. The surrounding void collapsed, shattering into pieces. Suzimo launched another strike at the egg. With a deafening boom, the hall crumbled, the bone avenue beneath splitting into countless fragments. Suzimo looked down, only to find the egg still completely unharmed. Interesting, he chuckled. I told you, stop wasting effort, the voice inside said. Leave now, and I'll withdraw all the parasites from the Skytrap Island. No, compared to anything else, I find you more interesting. Suzimo shook his head. The being paused, then said, What if we make a deal? What kind of deal? Suzimo asked, intrigued. You want to seize heaven's will, don't you? I can make the void parasites obey you, help you take it. Why would you help me? Suzimo asked. Mutual non-aggression. I only ask for a place to rest, it replied. I think you're not seeking rest, but revival, Suzimo sneered. Once you break out of that egg, you won't be what you are now. So what? Even if you know, you can't stop me. Not you, not even old villainous heaven, the voice said calmly. You really think I can't do anything to you? Suzimo chuckled softly. With a wave of his right hand, he directly opened the passage to the God world. A powerful suction force spread out from within. What is this? The voice from the egg asked calmly. You'll know once you go in, Suzimo replied. As the suction force surged forth, the entire insect egg was uprooted, along with the floating bone path that was connected to it, and they were all pulled into the god world. Suzimo lifted his head, glancing at the sky above. The world was eerily silent. Then his figure also stepped into the god world. As soon as he entered, he heard the boisterous laughter of the creature inside the egg. Rare indeed, who would have thought that within the primordial heartlands, another newborn world still exists. Do you really need to be this excited? Suzimo said. Boy, I should be thanking you, the creature replied. This newborn world, it is far more interesting than the primordial heartlands. Once I consume this new world, I'll be able to devour the primordial heartlands afterward. 2 birds with 1 stone. You don't seem to understand your situation yet, Suzimo said with a faint smile. What situation? The creature asked. That all of you will become my nourishment. Suzimo didn't bother to explain further. His direct attacks could not break the egg, and that realization told him the key to breaking it lay not in brute force. Or rather, with the power he could currently access, it was impossible to shake this egg. He would have to dismantle it from its structure. All the rules of existence were nothing more than a speck of dust upon the primordial chaos bead. And here in the god world, Suzimo was the creator god. With a mere beckon of his right hand, from the depths of the endless void, places no one could ever explore, the figure of the primordial chaos bead slowly emerged. The ancient pearl shone with boundless radiance, at times illuminating 10,000 rivers and mountains, at times scattering apart countless nebulae. The primordial chaos bead descended with overwhelming might, and under its arrival, phenomena manifested across the heavens. What is this thing? The creature inside the egg shrieked. I should be asking you what you are, Suzimo said with a smile. When the primordial chaos bead enveloped the insect egg with its boundless light, changes began to appear on its surface. Strands of power circulated across it. It was the primordial edict of devouring. No wonder I couldn't break it, Suzimo murmured in sudden clarity. Even immortals only comprehended nomological truths. Even nirvana void cultivators grasped merely primal Taos. But primordial edicts, those were still far beyond his reach. This was not a power he could yet touch. How could this be? What did you do? The insect egg was gradually shrinking, being decomposed. Inside, the creature grew more frantic, its voice sharp and panicked. If you beg for mercy now, it's not too late, Suzimo said flatly. The great Alphen will never beg for mercy, not even in death. The furious voice roared. You'll die, you can't escape. Still so stubborn? Suzimo smiled. He ignored the shouting and left the god world. The primordial chaos bead's disintegration of the insect egg would take time, and Suzimo naturally wouldn't remain here idly. A figure burst out of the Dead Sea. The moment Suzimo reappeared in the outer world, he felt multiple gazes fall upon him. It seemed many people had been paying close attention to his movements. Seeing him vanish earlier, their hearts must have been in suspense. Yet none dared risk their lives by entering the Dead Sea after him. Holy Sun Su Yu? Several people stared at him. Suzimo scanned them briefly, recognizing among them Primordius, Holy Son of the Supreme Primal Sacred Ground, the Dark Lord of the Radiant Realm, Shi Tian of the Molten Tombs, Gong Sun Zhaojue of the Solar Palace, as well as many unfamiliar faces. What are you all doing here? Suzimo asked with a smile. Holy Sun Su, did you discover anything? Could you share it with us? Primordius asked. With a great enemy before us, we must of course stand united. You mean those pesky insects? Suzimo pointed at the sky with disdain. They only target you all. To me, they're nothing. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure transformed into a streak of light, directly soaring toward the skies above the Skytrap Island. This time he held nothing back. Within a few breaths, he had already neared the island's summit. The void parasites above seemed provoked, surging at him in endless waves. Their shrill screeches were piercing, and gathered together they were enough to make anyone's skin crawl. Suzimo raised his hand. Upon his blade, Shadow Tyrant. Flames blazed and thunder roared. Like a peerless slayer's weapon, he hacked open a path through the swarm by sheer force, charging straight up to the Skytrap Island. Though the higher he climbed, the more numerous and dense the swarms became, they still failed to halt his advance. He was the first to step onto the island above. One glance revealed a sight of utter desolation. The island was vast beyond imagination, tens of thousands of square meters, nearly half the boundless sea. Yet the scenery was utterly ruined. Nothing but craters of all sizes. But these were no ordinary pits. Each crater represented a particle world. With the passage of time, some of these particle worlds had perished on their own, while others still lingered in broken, incomplete forms. "The heavenly pits," said the black-robed youth who had earlier introduced himself as Jian Yushang of the Morning Star Tower, stepping onto the island as well. Others soon followed, one after another ascending the island. At first, none of them had used their full strength, fearing there might be deadly traps here and preferring not to serve as cannon fodder. Now, seeing Su Zimo step onto the island, they naturally wouldn't allow themselves to fall behind. "Heavenly pits?" Su Zimo repeated. "That's right. In ancient times, Grand Emperor Fei, you led everyone in a great battle here. That battle carved out these pits, and even after 1,000,000 years, they still have not healed," Jian Yushang explained. After all, space had its own power to mend itself. This spoke volumes of the battle's ferocity. Raising his gaze, Su Zimo saw the void gate ahead. The swarms of void parasites were pouring out from this very gate. Endless, unceasing, impossible to kill off completely. "Destroy this void gate, and the swarm will stop," someone suggested. "To think that the enemy Grand Emperor Fei you faced back then was so powerful. Compared to that, what we see now seems rather disappointing," Jian Yushang remarked from the side. Su Zimo only smiled. That was because they had not seen the great creature slumbering beneath the Dead Sea. If it truly revived, even a grand emperor might not withstand it. No one held back anymore. One after another, devastating techniques were unleashed. The void collapsed, space-time shattered, and countless insects were obliterated as sacrifices. In an instant, the void gate was destroyed. But before anyone could breathe a sigh of relief, a flash of sword light burst from behind. Hundreds of people were instantly pierced through the heart, their organs shredded, their souls annihilated. "You?" the dying victims cried out in agony. At once, nearly 1,000 cultivators who remained turned their gazes toward Su Zimo. "Holy Sun Su, let's send you out first. Don't take it personally, you're just too strong." Watching the sudden upheaval in the arena, Su Zimo let out a light laugh, not appearing the least bit surprised. It seemed clear these people had already made secret arrangements long before. Those who hadn't joined their alliance, most of them had just been slaughtered. Heaven's will was a power capable of altering fate itself. Su Zimo had already expected that no matter how strong he was, these people would never willingly give up. Even if all of them had only a sliver of a chance by uniting together, they would still risk everything for it. At his side, the black-robed youth Jian Yushang watched the scene unfold, still finding it hard to believe. "You, how could you? Either join us or die together with him," someone beside him asked indifferently. "I disdain to be in league with the likes of you," Jian Yushang snorted coldly. Then he looked towards Su Zimo and said, "How about we form an alliance?" Su Zimo ignored him. He merely extended his right arm slowly, curling his 5 fingers, making a provocative gesture. "All of you come at once. Today, I'll dye the Skytrap Island in blood." "Kill!" The crowd roared like thunder. Thousands of people spread out. If they stayed too close together, they would only make themselves easier targets for Su Zimo's wide-range strikes. Su Zimo lifted his head. Across the vast heavens, countless destinies shone in every color and form, like stars blossoming in the void. Some individuals flared especially bright, shining like suns and moons, eternal in their cycles. "Formation masters, bind him down!" someone shouted. From among the crowd, a youth carrying a chessboard on his back stepped forward. It was Emo-chan, with whom Suzumo had crossed paths a little before. He came from the Emo imperial clan, the very family of the Formation Emperor. The Hexagenesis immortal formation, created by the Formation Emperor, was hailed as the pinnacle of formation arts. A legend declared that it could never be broken from within. Now, spirit force swirled around Emo-chan as he removed the formation board from his back. This board had already been inscribed with the Hexagenesis immortal formation. The Emo imperial clan rarely ever brought it out, for the requirements to set it up were far too harsh. The sheer amount of resources and manpower it demanded was beyond imagination. Even for an imperial lineage, it was difficult to withstand more than a handful of uses. This time, however, to help Emo-chan seize heaven's will, they had no choice but to bring it out. On the board, the 6 primal forces circled endlessly. 6 different attributes, in 6 different colors, twined together into the shape of a great yin-yang circle. "Protect him. Don't let the formation be interrupted," shouted Zhang Qing, the holy son of vast azure sacred ground. The people around immediately moved to shield Emo-chan. But clearly they worried too much. Suzumo stood still, motionless, showing no intention to strike. He simply let Mo-chan complete his work. The so-called 6 Genesis were God, Demon, Beast, Immortal, Underworld, and Human. Any being belonging to these 6 realms, once caught inside the formation, could not break free unless attacked from outside. The only way out from within was if one were beyond the 5 elements, transcending the 6 realms, then the formation would not bind them. From the void, countless formation symbols floated out. These weren't formation flags or seals. They were talismans, unique carriers of the Hexagenesis immortal formation. Because its power was too great, ordinary mediums couldn't withstand it for long. Thus, the Formation Emperor had invented these specifically. As more and more talismans descended, the very void around Suzumo began to change. Ripples rose layer after layer, and the fluctuations only grew stronger. The formation board expanded thousands of times, covering the skies above Suzumo. Then, with Emo-chan's loud cry of "Seal!", the board fell like a rainbow, carrying vast momentum. In an instant, Suzumo felt the void around him transform. It was as though the top of the Skytrap Island had been shrouded by a mysterious power. From all directions, this power surged in like countless long threads. Suzumo himself became like a puppet with strings tied to his body. Those threads sought to bind him. "We've trapped him!" someone shouted joyfully. "Don't hold back. Everyone unleash your strongest attacks and blast him straight into the heavenly pits below," someone else urged. Now everyone stood upon the void, with Suzumo alone above the pit. Curiously, though the island originally restricted flight, at the very peak one could walk upon the air freely. Across the heavens, a terrifying scene unfolded as countless powers gathered. It was hard to imagine just how overwhelming the combined strikes of thousands of prodigies could be. To say they could destroy heaven and earth would not be an exaggeration. As their attacks fell, the entire Skytrap Island trembled. Yet its defenses were astonishing. A normal island would have been reduced to dust under such onslaughts, but the Skytrap Island only quaked. Inside the Hexagenesis immortal formation, earth-shaking explosions resounded. Everything was swallowed within. Dust rose like a raging sandstorm, sweeping in all directions. "Don't stop! Don't give him the slightest chance to breathe!" someone shouted again. They refused to give Suzumo even a moment to counterattack. Wave after wave of attacks poured down. It was clear how deeply they feared him. Thunderous booms roared ceaselessly across the skies. The entire island seemed to sink under their assault. Outside, watching this, the crowd naturally broke into discussion. "A tall tree catches the wind. Those who don't know how to hide their brilliance meet this end," someone gloated. "With attacks like these, 10 lives wouldn't be enough. His soul will be scattered for sure. So what if he destroyed immortal extinction? Heavens will drive people mad." But such were only the thoughts of ordinary people. Most who had actually fought Suzumo fell silent. At the ruins of immortal extinction, the few remaining disciples gathered in silence. Led by the Supreme Ancestor, 5 ancestors stood together, gazing at the heavens. "What do you think?" the Supreme Ancestor asked. "Consider it revenge for us?" Sacred Lord Feng Tianya said coolly. "You really think he's dead?" chuckled Treasure Taoist beside him. "Please enlighten me, Patriarch," Feng Tianya quickly replied. "After all these years as Sacred Lord, your vision still hasn't grown at all." Treasure Taoist snorted. Having crippled his true fate, he was now visibly aging day by day. His strength was gone, but his insight remained. "He nearly killed me with a single palm. You think these people could kill him so easily? That Hexagenesis immortal formation is troublesome, though," added Mountain Ancestor. Indeed, the Mo Imperial Clan's formation was a marvel of the formation path. A design striving for flawless perfection. "Just wait and see," the Supreme Ancestor said. Silence fell around them once more. On Skytrap Island, the gathered prodigies finally ceased their attacks, eyes locked intently on the island below. As the dust began to settle, the already broken and fragmented heavenly pit revealed yet more new craters. The sandstorm slowly dispersed, and at last the scene beneath gradually became clear. "Where is he?" someone asked in shock. Wherever their gazes fell, apart from the countless pits, there was no trace of Su Zimo anywhere. Could it be he was blasted into dust, soul completely annihilated? Another said in disbelief. "Don't let your guard down. Search below, make sure." Someone else suggested. "Guys, have you played enough yet?" At that moment, a voice suddenly rang out beside them. Everyone's body stiffened. They turned their heads instantly, and there stood Su Zimo. No one knew when he had stepped free of the Hexagenesis immortal formation, leaning casually against a mountain peak at the island's edge, watching them all with interest, as though their faces were painted with clownish makeup, performing a ridiculous play upon a stage. How did you get out?" Mo Chun asked, his voice trembling with fear. The Hexagenesis immortal formation, this was the pinnacle of formations on the primordial heartlands. "Do you still remember me?" Su Zimo asked with a smile. "Of course I remember," Mo Chun replied, his expression bitter. When he had first entered the Mo Imperial Clan, he had obtained a fortuitous encounter that gave him access to the Hexagenesis immortal formation. He had used his very body as the formation plate, with the Hexagenesis immortal formation as its core, inscribing arrays onto every part of his flesh. Enduring countless agonies, he had finally achieved today's level. Yet when Su Zimo had once visited the Mo Imperial Clan, he had forced him to hand over the formation diagram of the Hexagenesis immortal formation. But what did that have to do with breaking the formation? Mo Chun suddenly had a terrible suspicion. Could it be that Su Zimo had deciphered the method of breaking the formation merely from the diagram? But that seemed absurd, utterly unrealistic. Su Zimo simply smiled. With a wave of his right hand, the heaven derivation astrolabe flew forth from the void. For him to escape the Hexagenesis immortal formation was, of course, thanks to this artifact. The heaven derivation astrolabe could deduce the mysteries of any formation in the world. The heaven derivation astrolabe surged, endless starlight flickering, cascading like flowing radiance. The crowd suddenly realized that the Hexagenesis immortal formation beneath had expanded infinitely, now enveloping all of them. At that instant, Mo Chun realized he had lost all control of the formation. "What did you do?" he cried out in horror. "You'll find out soon enough," Su Zimo replied with a faint smile. Now that the Hexagenesis immortal formation had trapped everyone, it meant that unless someone from outside sought out the formation's eye and broke it, they would never escape. "Now tell me," Su Zimo's gaze swept across the crowd. "How do you want to die?" "Don't panic. We're so many. How could we fear him alone?" Lei Yen said coldly. "Fight him together," someone roared, and the entire assembly charged at Su Zimo. "It seems you still don't understand the difference between us," Su Zimo said softly. "Invoke heavenly chaos. Create earthly avatar." The god-demon creation Atlas rotated in his mind. In that instant, his body towered nearly 1,000 meters tall. His frame grew massive, infernal energy billowed, and dark clouds surged forth. The aura and pressure alone sent those nearest him flying. That towering figure of Su Zimo appeared like an ancient god-demon reborn. Infernal force surged skyward, his shoulders propping up the heavens, his eyes blazing like the sun and moon. He stepped forward, and the heavens and earth shook violently, the very firmament torn asunder, an oppressive might bearing down upon all. Today, slaughter without sleep. His words fell softly, and at once, Shadow Tyrant expanded hundreds of times over. Since its fusion with the true God Sword, it could now shift in size freely. Gripping the enormous Shadow Tyrant, lightning roared, and thunder cracked around him. At the same time, the colossal phantom of the heaven-shattering giant condensed behind him, its inner cyclones spinning madly. The Titan's boundless heaven-shattering power fused with infernal force and the power of creation itself. That Titan was nearly as tall as Su Zimo himself. From afar, it looked as though two giant beings were striding through the heavens, emerging from the endless storm of thunder. Su Zimo swung his hand, and countless figures were blasted away. Meanwhile, every attack that landed upon him left him utterly unscathed, like scratches upon stone, meaningless. What kind of monster is this? Dark Lord muttered, his gaze heavy. Behind him stretched endless darkness. Though born of the radiant realm, he had always shunned the light, embracing the shadows instead. It had led him down a different path, a unique cultivation way, eventually making him the holy son of Radiant Realm. Yet even he could not help but feel dread. And not only him, but all the holy sons of the imperial lineages were also preparing themselves in full. Blood Tomb's Sacred Ground's holy son, Qiu Qianji, revealed his true fate, twin blood suns crossing and interweaving in the sky. At that moment, Solar Palace, Wind Snow Sacred Ground, Coiling Dragon Sea, Cold Clouds Sacred Ground, Twilight Sacred Ground, one after another, the imperial lineages all stepped forth. Blizzards that could freeze mountains, flames like suns blazing across the horizon, ancient beasts striding like demon bulls across peaks. And with a single cry, "Sword, come!" the boundless void shattered, sword intent tearing the heavens apart, reducing all to smoke and dust. Countless true fates, countless techniques, whether legacies of grand emperors or self-created arts, endless in variety. Like a torrential rainstorm, they all surged toward Su Zimo. In their eyes, there was no longer fear, only surging, boundless battle intent. Attack from all directions. Don't let him respond easily, Dark Lord ordered. Beneath the vast heavens, the will of dawn pierced the firmament. Su Zimo tilted his head back and grinned. Above the 9 heavens, gods gather. Below the 9 hells, souls surround. Billions of beings bow their heads. 1,000,000 gods and demons serve as my generals. This is my era. Whether you yield or resist, today you will all become corpses paving the road to my ascension. With a sweep of his hand, all their attacks were erased in an instant. How is this possible? Someone cried, eyes bloodshot. Their minds buzzed in disbelief. The proudest, most devastating attacks of thousands had been casually wiped away. Has he really grown so powerful already? Someone muttered, dazed. Su Zimo's feet stamped upon Skytrap Island. Before, no matter how they attacked, the island only trembled. But now cracks spread across its surface. One slash descended. Several cultivators were annihilated outright, their souls destroyed without resistance. Run! Someone finally lost heart, despair filling them. The towering figure before them was too insurmountable, crushing even the will to fight. Run where? The Hexagenesis immortal formation seals all escape, Emo-chan answered bitterly. If any of you still have some hidden card, use it now. Otherwise, none of us will leave alive. In this moment, Su Zimo was unstoppable, invincible. With every strike, more fell, defense was futile. Are we truly destined to perish here today? I am not reconciled to this. Someone howled at the heavens, veins bulging on his forehead. Since childhood, They had all cultivated tirelessly. From childhood they had cultivated. Even though many were born into imperial lineages, their journeys had been filled with endless hardships. Not to mention those rogue cultivators who had struggled step by step to reach this point. Now, standing so close to heaven's will, just one final step away. The seven-colored heavens will hung just above their heads. Everything felt like a dream, only to die so miserably at this juncture. It wasn't that they couldn't accept death. Anyone daring to fight for heaven's will had already come with the resolve to either succeed or perish. But to be slaughtered in such a humiliating manner, they could not accept it. Everyone yearned for a death as weighty as Mount Tai. None wished for a death lighter than a feather. Fellow cultivators, I still have one final method. A voice suddenly spoke. Like an oasis in the desert, it gave everyone a glimpse of hope. All turned to look. It was the holy son of the invincible domain, Changsun Wutian. He wore golden robes, his long hair cascading behind him, hesitation in his eyes as he looked around. If you have something, speak. We don't have time to waste, someone urged. My sect's ancestor, the invincible emperor, once left behind a technique known as the primordial strike, Changsun Wutian said. It allows everyone's power to be condensed into a single blow. Everyone knew human strength was limited. With cultivation it grew, but no one could ever wield 100% of their own power. Like how a person may lift all manner of things yet cannot lift themselves. Primordial strike? I've never heard of such a thing, someone questioned. It's normal you haven't. This technique is forbidden, Changsun Wutian explained. From the primordial ages it comes. Eternal it shall vanish. Once used, it gathers every shred of your strength into one. But when its time ends, your body will be no different from a cripple. In but the flick of a finger, ages pass. That is its price. At his words, silence fell over the crowd. No wonder he had kept it hidden. Once used, they would become helpless, waiting to be slaughtered. But in this situation, was there any other choice? The Hexagenesis immortal formation trapped them. They couldn't defeat their enemy, nor could they flee. Do we even have another option? Someone asked quietly. Everyone remained silent. Then let's do it. Give everything we have. I refuse to believe there exists someone truly invincible in this world, said young Master Bai Dao. They all turned to look at Su Zimo. He stood like a god-demon walking through the void, lightning swirling around him, everything before him falling into silence. A single word from his lips was like thunder splitting the darkness. He towered over all, a figure swallowing mountains and rivers, blade light and sword shadows, his unmatched aura filling the heavens. I will be the vessel, Changsun Wutian said solemnly. Release your true fate and spirit force to me. Offer no resistance. Otherwise, we will all suffer heavy backlash. All right? They answered in unison. Changsun Wutian closed his eyes briefly, inhaled deeply. When he snapped them open, his aura had completely changed. A vast, ancient pressure spread out, gray mist rising around him. One by one, the others placed their hands on the shoulders of the one before them, forming a long chain. Yin and Yang. This is the Tao of heaven and earth, the law governing all things, the parents of transformation, the source of life and death, the dwelling of divinity. As he chanted, the gray mist surged, wrapping around everyone present. Before him, a door of void appeared. Within it, boundless power began to gather. Everyone could clearly feel their strength draining away, spirit force and true fate alike, pouring into Changsun Wutian. The force within that void door grew ever stronger. Su Zimo watched with interest. Oh, now this is something. His gaze pierced through the void door, freezing the souls of all who stood there. Through layer after layer of void, into the origins of the primordial era. Something was awakening. A ray of gray light seeped into the darkness. Kill! Changsun Wutian roared, his face twisted, pouring his final strength into the word. Behind him, everyone's faces contorted as well, their thunderous shouts of kill, shaking the heavens. Murderous intent surged skyward, splitting the dome of heaven, condensing into a tangible sword. The gray mist from the void door burst forth. It shot out at the speed of light, so fast even Suzumo's eyes could barely follow. The void along its path shattered, all things reduced to dust, leaving only a gray beam tearing through everything in its way. When the strike erupted, everyone collapsed to the ground, their spirit energy utterly drained. Suzumo raised his head. The gray beam struck him in the abdomen, piercing straight through. It worked! Changsun Wutian shouted excitedly. At their level, being struck in the abdomen wouldn't kill them, unless the soul itself was destroyed. That was the power of the primordial strike. It could shred the soul, wielding the force of eternity. But as the gray power lingered inside Suzumo, it all surged toward his true fate. He did not resist, letting it rush through him. Within his true fate, a great world, like a planet, rotated slowly. When the gray mist touched it, it was like moths plunging into flame. The instant they made contact, they vanished without a trace. Everything returned to calm, as though nothing had happened. Outside, everyone's eyes locked on Suzumo. "Why hasn't he fallen yet?" someone whispered. "His true fate must be strong. Give it time." But speaking of which, after all this fighting, do any of you even know what his true fate is? The words struck them silent. They realized they had never seen Suzumo's true fate, and yet, without even revealing it, he was already so invincible. Suzumo drew his gaze back and looked at the crowd with calm indifference. "It's time to end this," he said softly. You're unharmed?" Changsun Wutian asked, disbelief in his voice. Suzumo gave no reply. He simply raised Shadow Tyrant, the great curved blade, and brought it down. Dozens were slain in an instant. Step by step he advanced, like a reaper wielding his scythe. "Is this truly the end?" someone muttered. "Even if it is, so what? I Chu Feng have faced countless obstacles to reach this point. Even if I die, I will not die cowering. I refuse to be butchered like livestock." The young man named Chu Fengchen stood, sword in hand, pointing it at Suzumo. "Remember my name, Celestial Gate Sacred Ground, Chu Feng." Though after the primordial strike he had almost no strength left, still he dragged himself forward, sword raised, charging toward Suzumo. He held his sword, no different from an ordinary man. Step by step, he walked toward Suzumo. He knew he was already defeated. No matter what, death awaited him. He merely wished to die with some dignity, not end in such humiliation. Everyone present was infected by this resolve. So what if they were to die? "Remember my name, Xue Bufan. Hidden Sovereign Sacred Ground, Wang Lin. Azure Cloud Sacred Ground, Li Yuntian. Void Dao Sacred Ground, Yang Teng." Oh! Name after name was shouted aloud, each carrying a tragic grandeur. At this moment, none of them sought to inherit heaven's will, nor even to survive. What they truly sought was only to be remembered. If, in the years to come, when people occasionally mentioned them, even if their names were only brushed over in passing, that alone would be enough. Such is humanity, desires never cease. From the very beginning, one only seeks 3 meals a day and a place to rest. Then later comes the longing for power, kingdoms, or dominion over the world. Yet for most, it is only in death that they finally let go of their endless greed. If you had known it would come to this, you should never have joined the battle for heaven's will, Suzumo said calmly. Alas, apart from death itself, few ever awaken with true clarity. Each person held their weapon, shouting their name aloud. Every one of those names had once resounded across the lands, well known in their regions, their deeds recorded. But here, all were like fish crossing a river, countless and indistinguishable. Phoenix Terrace, Ningyu, Soaring Camel Race, Luo Wenzhou. Even now, names continued to be declared, figures rushing toward Suzumo. Though they were no stronger than mortals in this state, they still charged forth. "We only wish to declare this, each of our deaths is not in vain," Luo Wenzhou roared. To die by my hand is not in vain. It should be considered an honor. Su Zimo smiled. He showed no mercy. Lifting his blade Shadow Tyrant, he struck down. Thunder shook the heavens, rainbows split the skies, and like a demon king descending, with each swing countless dozens of prodigies perished. With every step he took, miles of ground collapsed beneath him. Above the heavenly pits, the slaughter raged on. Many watching from outside could no longer bear to look directly. Too brutal. In all past struggles for heaven's will, none have been like this. This isn't a battle. It's a massacre. A slaughter without resistance. I knew Wang Lin, he was a prodigy of our western continent. Once renowned. What a pity. Yes, and Li Yuntian too, a famed genius of the southern continent, yet he fell so easily. This era's grand emperor will most likely be him. Not so simple. The struggle for heaven's will isn't over yet. If he inherits heaven's will, I wonder, what title will his imperial reign take? The murmurs spread among the spectators. Oh! At this moment, within the heavenly pits above Skytrap Island, rivers of blood already flowed. Corpses lay strewn everywhere. The bodies piled high, thousands, even nearly 10,000. The stench of blood thickened the air, so dense it seemed the pit itself had been dyed scarlet. The fissure at the center of Skytrap Island widened, splitting the landmass apart. The once mighty island now divided into northern and southern halves, collapsing away from each other. Yet the island did not truly fall. Some mysterious force caught it, holding its fragments aloft in the void. This was the same force that had always allowed Skytrap Island to drift in the skies. Su Zimo's blade intent swept across, severing the final foe before him. His gaze swept the battlefield, as though death itself were walking among them. Whomever my eyes behold and still see move, kill. Whomever my ears hear and still make sound, slay. Step by step, he walked across the sea of corpses, moving from the southern half of the island toward the north. The island was vast, its size comparable to 6 or 7 true martial sacred grounds combined. He raised his head toward the still flickering heavens will above. That it continued to shine meant the struggle was not yet over. He lifted his eyes toward the distance. All across Skytrap Island, jagged peaks rose into the heavens, strange and perilous. To the north, golden flames burned, distorting and incinerating the void itself. To the south, axe intent split the sky, thunder crackling as though to sunder the heavens. To the east, ripples spread across the void, cosmic phenomena erupting. The Tao of absolute beginning, origin of all, root of everything. To the west, beastly roars shook the heavens. Colossal shadows loomed upon mountain peaks, hefting entire mountains as weapons, their bestial might stirring storms of blood and wind. Everywhere across the sky, phenomena surged. Since you've finished probing, show yourselves. I've no patience to hunt you down one by one. Su Zimo's voice resounded, carrying across all of Skytrap Island. In the next instant, a dozen figures stepped forth into the air. During the earlier battle, some had hidden in the shadows, never once joining in. Thus, the Hexagenesis immortal formation had not trapped them. Su Zimo glanced upward. Some familiar faces, others unknown. Jiang Macho, Tan Jilin, Primordius, Jian Yushang. The spectators outside, who had thought the battle finished, instantly revived with excitement. That's Chu Tianyang of the God race. And that's Qing Ruoxue of the Celestial race. Those two, Wang Buhui and White Lotus Fairy of the Magpie Bridge Wonderland, both competing for heaven's will? But there is only one heaven's will. Who will claim it? Look carefully, the God-Demon Well has sent its people. In all these eras, the God-Demon Well never interfered in the heaven's will battle. I'd nearly forgotten that Colossus still exists. It seems the true powerhouses only reveal themselves at the end. Pity those before. They were nothing but cannon fodder, yet died without even realizing it. Seeing the gathered dozen, Su Zimo shook his head with a laugh. You'd best all come at once. My patience is limited. Holy Sun Su, I admit you are strong, Primordius, holy son of the supreme primal sacred ground, spoke. But do not think this world holds only mediocrity. His Primordius physique awakened, light of origin surging around him. His snow-white hair streamed behind, and though he was a man, his beauty was eerie, almost otherworldly. They say the Primordius physique traces back to the river of fate itself. Suzimo chuckled. Tell me, have you ever glimpsed yourself shouldering the heaven's will? The river of fate cannot be casually gazed upon, Primordius replied coolly. A pity. Suzimo shook his head. Had you glimpsed your fate, you would never dare speak to me in such a tone. Do you understand the meaning of the word arrogance? Primordius's brows furrowed. In my life, I have never feared anyone. From this moment on, your life will know fear, Suzimo answered. Beside them, Jiang Macho and Tangeline exchanged a glance. The Army Breaker Imperial Physique and Scarlet Flame Imperial Physique awakened together. Two tyrannical forces churned the heavens, their power surging into the skies above.